And the first item on our agenda is approval of the minutes of the pilot board meeting of August 3rd, 2005.
So moved. Second motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Item 2, discussion regarding matters of general interest. Grant, you want to take? I'm sorry, Bernie, do you want to go?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming. And, I've been here 7 months now, full 7 months, and we thought it would be a good idea to formally get together and, go over any matters that the pilots have. And we have worked very closely with the gentleman here on several items, issues, if you will, that have happened in our channel, and very pleased with the cooperation that we have received, especially when we had our shoaling challenges and so on. Wanted to publicly thank them for working with us hand in hand, and I know our harbor master, Ray Ramirez, is in communication with them daily. So also I would like to hear, there's been some things where, we are not the licensed folks, and maybe we don't understand it enough, but we have had, some items that we would like to address with them that could help us. And I think what we're thinking basically is we from the board are certainly interested in doing the best for our users. And under that, when we finished, when the Corps who spearheaded our dredging at the entrance of the channel, then it was all completed. There was a survey, and then afterwards there was a concern that there were other areas that had to be dealt with, and we were kind of surprised with that position that they took, and again are inviting their comments, because we wanted to get the restriction lifted immediately to be able to broadcast that to our customers. It was very important from a commercial point of view, and very important to send out the message that we were back to business as usual. And there were, at that point, concerns from the pilots that we couldn't lift the restriction yet. And my question was, how long was that known, that you had a concern? And again, I'm not being critical, but just want to make sure that we're joining forces, that the users of the port are also the users of the pilots, and that was one of the items that I considered for this discussion.
Okay. I really wasn't quite prepared for that one, but our point was that they dredged the step back here. The area that they were dredging, we had, obviously that's what we knew.
At the entrance of the
at the entrance, our concern was that going by, with ships, that there was a bar, maybe a sandbar, setting up outside the jetties, and maybe I made the unfortunate assumption that the Corps would be doing be surveying the whole area, and that was our main concern. I believe that when we had this meeting, that seemed like we addressed our concerns, and that and we were asking for the survey for the outside bar where they didn't dredge. That the next day that survey came through.
No, it worked very well.
And we looked at it and said, okay, it looks good enough, and that's what I'll reiterate, that we're still concerned that obviously that we're back to 39-foot draft, but how long are we going to be back? There's still a lot of areas where the controlling depth outside is supposed to be 46, and it's not 46 anymore. I don't have the surveys with me, but it's a lot less. And then even on the inside, where it's supposed to be 43, it's at 41 now. There's still a lot of work to be done, and obviously, and I applaud from what I heard that the efforts that the board itself made just to get that dredge down here with whatever the reasons that it wasn't looking like it was going to happen, and then you guys got things going, and that's all I can say about the 1 day delay. I believe it was 1 day delay between us being more confident and seeing that we had the water, and then saying yes, we're ready to go back to 39.
Just again.
And I believe, yes, I believe that someone. I'll just put it on my shoulders that I made some assumptions that the Corps would be doing outside surveys, and that was a bad assumption, obviously.
Well, I just didn't know when you all had that concern. I think what I'm getting at is our customer service. We want to be real sharp, real responsive to our customers. And if this was known 5 days before, I would have hoped that was bundled into all these other efforts. And at the time that the Corps came back with their survey, that we would have been able to respond. And I don't know if it was the same day or the day before that you learned or had this other concern.
Well, I believe I was, trying to think back then that I was trying to, maybe it got miscommunicated or it didn't come through as clearly as the pilot should have made it to try to do the outside water. Just a note on that, I've been here 5 years, and the Corps does quarterly surveys, and we recheck them on the quarter. But even with that, one of the pilots that was here, he ran aground outside in the middle of the center of the channel. We had shoaling, and then of course I had the same problem. I had the same problem, and so we had these quarterly surveys, and I guess sometimes they're not, in certain circumstances, it's just not enough for whatever reason.
The shoaling you talked about, is that outside the jetty?
Well, actually, it's outside the jetties, and it's still in the areas where they dredged. When I'm saying shoaling, I'm saying that the controlling depth, when you come through areas that's supposed to be 43 feet, and I believe a lot of it is 41 feet. Outside, outside the jetties, the controlling depth is supposed to be 46, and there's areas where it's less. That's the type of shoaling. When I say shoaling, that's what it is. It's the water's less than what the controlling depth that the Corps says they're going to keep the channel at. I guess from the pilot's point of view is that you guys need to just keep hammering on them until they
we'll do that part.
I know you do. Till they come back and get us back to.
I think, like you mentioned, there's evidence of that. And we got the results, and just to add to that, I after that traveled to Austin to be with the Texas Port Association. And a lot of the directors of other ports in Texas didn't really understand that we'd gotten the government dredge here by our good fortune and a lot of efforts through our lobbyists and so on, everybody knocking on doors, and our congressmen and so on, is that when they heard it was Brownsville that got that and so many people had needs, they were happy for us, slightly envious, if you will, about us getting that little breakthrough, and so we're all very pleased with that, and certainly appreciate all of your help with that. And there's some other areas, and again, I don't want to overemphasize that we're commercial to the point that we want to request you in any way take extraordinary chances or not be safe, and we will never take a position like that. But just some things where we can work together. I know we already do, so I'm repeating what's happening. you know, we have a lot, and that's probably what you're prepared for today, is we have a lot of dismantling companies here, and some of our scenarios have changed. As you've mentioned, the size of vessels coming in, thank goodness, are larger these days, come in with more tonnage and so on, and create some situations that are more challenging to you. But having said that, you know, we certainly want to, especially lessees that are paying their rent and everything, and they have waterside property for the purpose of dismantling. We want to be able to be as cooperative as we can, and I know you are. And but that was the other item that we were bringing today for discussion.
I'm ready for that one.
Okay.
I mean, do you want to? Well, we'll just get to the meat of the problem. Well,
Yes.
well, just the issues. And I wrote a few letters, and obviously you received them.
Yes.
You know, with
Yes.
the harbor master and
Yes.
back and forth. You know, the area that we're talking, I believe
Yeah.
the area that we're talking about is a transform area, and you can see a scrap ship here from I don't know when this picture was taken. There's a scrap ship on there now that we moved.
Yes, sir. And we appreciate your help.
And we spoke with Omar when we moved it, and the way it lined up. You can go out here, and if it's clear, you can look and see that ship, and then International Shipbreaker has a double ship right there.
Yes.
And the best I can tell, it seems like it's right on the edge of the channel. I just by eyeballing it, going by it with ships. And one of the issues with putting ships on this bank here is dock 15's over here. You're coming in with a loaded ship at 39 feet, and in this area, right somewhere around here, we usually got to stop the engine, and we have the tugs made up, and we're trying to slow down from 5 or 4 knots to slow down to about 2 knots when you get close to the dock, and that's a lot of work. I mean,
Yes. The momentum of
the
one
momentum of the
those ships is
ship,
tremendous.
and just with the tugs we have, it's a lot of work. With the ESCO, the channel is cut more on this side, where this is like the edge of the channel here. For ESCO, the edge of the channel would be here, and with their ships there, we had a 39-foot ship, and let's say didn't quite turn out the way we wanted it. We would probably, and let's say we get up on the north bank, we'd hit the bank before hitting the scrap ship, or not hit, but roll off the bank without squashing a tug or hitting the scrap ship. But here, if you have a misfortune here, you're more than likely you're going to hit the scrap ship, the first thing that's going to hit would be a tugboat. When I come up here, I put one tug on the starboard bow, one tug on the port bow, to try to control my bow and slow myself down. That's our concern with using this whole area here for scrap ships. There's talk about a dock 16, I believe east of dock 15. Is that correct? Well, okay, I'd stop here. Well, dock 16 is going to be here. I move my stopping point somewhere, stopping the engine point, another ship length half back, so I can make the future dock 16. The letter I gave you, I'll just kind of go through the highlights here. The size of the ships are getting bigger. We're getting 50,000, 55,000 tonners on a regular basis. Size of deadweight size that they are. I just spoke with the relationship with the dock, and one of the one of the issues or one of the things we're trying to overcome here is just the way things have been done in the past. I think, for the most part, when we all were growing up, we drove cars without airbags. Now you can drive a Honda Civic with 5 airbags. I mean, buy it and it has 5 airbags. For the pilot's point of view, we want to try to increase our safe, maximize the use of the harbor, but also maximize, bring up the level of safety. For the pilots, I mean, the bottom line is the tools we use are tugboats. We've had, I've put some pages about the different studies done on the tugboat requirements in Brownsville. One was dated, Noble Denton was dated 1993, and this last one by NTEC was dated 2002 on generally the configuration of the tugboats that's needed in the port of Brownsville and the bollard pull / horsepower that's supposed to be, that was recommended. Never made what a 1993 recommendation. We're trying. I'm here. We're here working together. But this, that for the pilots, that's the number one. That's our number one goal issue. Try to get some more bollard pull. I believe the port needs it. You talk to Ampels, they need it. Customers need it. We work in conditions like today, 30, whatever the wind's blowing out, 30 plus. We do that on, we do a lot on skill and a lot, that's it, skill. But horsepower gives you the margins to move stuff in this kind of wind, the bigger ships in this kind of wind. And if we're going to continue getting busier and busier, no one wants to say, well, the wind's too high for me to move a ship.
That's right.
If we have the tugs, we lessen our weather days.
Well, Captain, I think that's you hit it right on the nail. I think the justification, of course, we want to have another meeting with our tugboat company. It's not ours; it's a user's tugboat company. But we're the facilitators, so we certainly want to do everything we can to get that extra horsepower in here. We've had those conversations. People before me have certainly had those conversations and promoted that and requested that. And there's only so much you can do. But as our volume grows, which we see it happening, and the size of the vessels it's obvious that they're getting larger, the tonnage on those vessels, then I think we can be a little more demanding. We have a little bit more negotiating power, I hope, since we only have one tug company, we have to just sort of rely. And of course, they basically, it's their bottom line, what they can afford to bring here and where they need that more horsepower. So we're in the middle of that sort of transition. To some point, we think that we're probably getting nearer to bringing in that extra horsepower.
Right. Well, I just want to point out that Signet Tug Company brought down from Corpus Christi a 4,000 horsepower Z-drive tug to help move a rig. Why is it up in Corpus? I know he has some business up there, but for lack of better terms, are we the redhead stepchild? Not. But that's the way. And this has been. I've been here 5 years, and he's got a Z-drive tug up there. There are 2 Z-drive tugs, and he's got a twin screw boat up there with 3,000 horsepower. And
Point well taken, and we certainly want to have those meetings coming up soon, and we will certainly include you in that. And I think that's a top priority for us as we grow, because I think what you mentioned, it's not just the size of the vessels, it's the amount of traffic we're going to see in our 17-mile channel, and the fact that we're a one-way channel. You know, we have to juggle that and make it happen. And again, we want to make sure that we express to you our appreciation for the job you do, the hours that you work, whatever time of day and night, and being so cooperative with the customers. And we just want to do more whenever we can, and we appreciate all your efforts.
And well, Gene, you know, on our efforts, you know, Jim being out, Gene dropped the, you know, told him to get down here, and got down here as soon as he could. Captain Kershaw is going to try to help us out as much as he can. So, and I think Jim tomorrow should be able to, with his doctor, be able to give us some time frame about when he'll be up and going again.
Okay.
And I appreciate all the customers in the port working with me, trying to let me sleep some. And, you know, their efforts to, and everybody else's efforts to keep things on track and going while we're busy.
Busy is a good thing these
Yeah.
days. Thank you, Captain. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's any other.
I've got a question. Ellie jumped me about, you know, how come she can't tie a ship to the bank and all the other.
No, it's there. It's there now. Yes.
Huh?
It's there. It is tied on the bank.
On her place?
Yes, it's there.
That, he mentioned that earlier.
It's right in this location here, and I like. But
All right,
and
she
it's
was getting on me. How come everybody else could do it and she couldn't?
well.
So my question was, how am I going to answer?
Okay, well I'll give you our answer.
So you finally let her do it.
Right, but this international, they dug out shelves to get their stuff in, and I believe Transformer did a little bit, and ESCO did a whole lot. I mean, and then ESCO has a new slip, but I mean they dug out their shelves, but the whole, you know, they look and they see this, and they ask why. And I understand that, but the channel run, and I just explained this, that
Does she need to dig out?
yes, she does.
Has she committed to do it?
According, yes, we talked to Omar.
Yes, maybe not as fast as everybody would like.
We talked to Omar
committed
when
to
I
it.
shifted that Omar. Is it Perez? His last name was on the ship, scrap ship with me when we shifted it, and Gene spoke to him. You know, Mr. Perez, I believe, he speaks Spanish, so Gene spoke to him and tried to relay our position, and Omar relayed his position, and Omar said that they have equipment there and they're gonna you know, do some digging, and so that gets, you know, hopefully that gets the scrap ship even further in. But it's their location here, the location of the channel being on that side versus this side, and their location as far as, you know, we want to stop at dock 15. Her location is the worst location. That's our point of view, and that's the way it is. I mean, in the future, you know, any core projects might be to widen the channel 50 feet to the north to give more space off of this bank and center the channel more, you know, across this area. But as of right now, the channel runs down. You know, I can hit that ship. I can't hit an ESCO ship with a deep loaded ship. That's
But
the
anyway,
difference.
she's got a ship there.
Right now,
She doesn't
so
have
we're
to-
gonna be playing. We're gonna be playing. Not playing, but we're gonna be going by there and doing the best we can.
But we appreciate it.
That's.
Anything else?
I just have a question for Ray. Ray, when's the last time we took silence on dock 11 and 12?
Dock 11 and 12,
Yeah.
that was late last year.
Okay, because I noticed the last ship, they just worked there after we took the fenders out. which was at lunchtime after we started at 7 o'clock. The aft end of the ship would not,
Not come in?
not come in all the way. And it was probably another 2 hours before it finally came in.
Yeah, the last sound we
12
felt
and 11.
were in November.
Yeah.
And they kind of verified as to the restrictions that we presently have.
Yeah, and we thought we had plenty of water when we took the fenders out, but apparently on the aft end of the ship, it was still not coming all the way in. It was just checking.
And as a matter of fact, we're going to retake the soundings, because the soundings that were taken the last time were not taken up at the face of the dock, and I need them at the face of the dock, which our engineering department is going to take care of those.
That was discussed.
That was discussed. And one thing, if I don't mind pointing out, as far as why we put that scrap vessel there, she's lighter than what we normally wanted to put in, but she came in with, 18 feet instead of the 20-something that they normally come in, so that made it a little different for the pilots to agree. And she's not as wide. We put vessels in there up to 84 feet in beam. This was only 74 feet, so, you know, any little space that would help the pilot, that would kind of help the pilots too.
But if she digs out, that'll help him.
Yes, she needs to dig out a lot.
And I don't know how much they can actually dig in to, off the to make these shells, but the more the better.
They're gonna work on the permit from the Corps of Engineers and try and get it as soon as possible so we can go ahead with the project, because they have a lease pending for the rest of the area, and we would like to put more vessels in there, because I think we're gonna be getting scrap vessels 4 or 5 at a time, and we do need the space, so that's being worked on.
Anything else? You have a motion to adjourn? We have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. We'll be in adjournment, gentlemen, for about 4 minutes. Where's
Someone took mine.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We want to welcome you to our regular board meeting at the Brownsville Navigation District. If everybody would please stand. And Vicki McCullough, please lead us in prayer.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful for the opportunity to gather in your name. We pray that the business conducted today will lay the foundation of good for years to come. We ask that you bless our board and help them make the best decisions for the benefit of the port and the community. We pray for peace among us. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. This is the time of our meeting that we reserve, ladies and gentlemen, for public comment, where anyone in our community can come and speak to an item that is on the agenda. We do actually have 2 different public comment periods. This first public comment period is reserved for those that wish to speak to an item that is on the agenda. Our second public comment period at the end of our meetings is for those that wish to speak to an item, even if it is not on the agenda. We do ask that you sign up in order to speak. And do we have anybody signed up? Is this regarding an item on the agenda, ma'am?
No.
Okay, can you just wait till the end of the meeting?
Fine.
Do we have anybody signed up to speak to an item that is on the agenda? Mr. Summers?
I got a handout, is that okay?
Sure, by all means, Mr. Summers.
I just want to give you 2 copies of everything right now. And one of this matrix for later. My name is Bill Summers. I'm President and CEO of the Rio Grande Valley Partnership, also a member of the Rio Grande Valley Mobility Task Force, and Vice Chairman of the I-69 Alliance for Texas. We have a great opportunity on the 26th and 27th of April, just in a couple of weeks. The Highway Commission is coming to Brownsville, Texas, to have their TxDOT Commissioners meeting. They do this about 3 or 4 times a year. They go outside of Austin. The first one ever outside of Austin
was to the Rio Grande Valley in 1990. Julius, I think you were involved in that meeting in Rancho Viejo, not Rancho Viejo, but the other end of the valley. The other end of the valley is Rancho Viejo. But I do have an invitation for you of some events coming up pertaining to transportation. But the reception, I got a call today from the Highway Commissioner's office. They wanted us to be sure that the commissioners at the Port of Brownsville were at both the reception and the public hearing the next day in Brownsville. We've been working on I-69 since 1990. And I think when the commission comes to the Rio Grande Valley, they are going to make an announcement. One of the routes that the I-69 is coming. And I feel, now this is my personal opinion, I feel for sure it's going to come up or down 77 to Harlingen, to Brownsville. And then there's going to be another leg over to Hidalgo County, but it won't go all the way to Interstate 37. We have a great opportunity here. One of the reasons I feel that they're coming to Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley is the Port of Brownsville. You know, I hope you understand it. All of us in the valley, especially involved in transportation, that this is our port also, not just Brownsville. And we feel very strong when things go wrong. And we feel that the Port of Brownsville needs to continue their bridge project, bridge and rail project. And I know all of you heard about the Port of Manzanilla and Lazo Cardenas. You can't believe what's going to happen in the next few years. There were some lawyers from China in the Rio Grande Valley last week. They might have come down here. But they're ready to, and I think they did already, sign agreements with Mexico to ship all their goods from China to Mexico instead of the west coast of the United States. We had some information today that for each container they ship through the Port of Manzanillo or Lazo Cardenas and into Brownsville and then on up the country. They save $650 per container. Man, that's you know, we feel that in the next few years there'll be over 1 million containers a year come through our area. Figure that. Creates a lot of jobs. I feel, and there's some information that I'll hand out to you, but I feel that all the paperwork, all the commitments, all the diplomatic notes, and all the presidential permits, and everything have been completed for your bridge. I think it should have been, my understanding, is the bridge should have been completed this year. I hope, I really hope, that you commissioners would consider, reconsider, of moving forward with this project. I understand the notes were signed by the governors of Tamaulipas a couple of years ago, of Tomas Sherrington at that time, and then the State Department from Mexico City has signed off on it. They're ready to move forward, and Commissioner Zavaleta, or Chairman, you know how I feel about lawsuits. I wish the two, you and Dan and Baum or whoever it is, would come together and solve your differences and get this bridge built for the Rio Grande Valley and for Brownsville. It is very, very important. That's why I feel that the Highway Commission is coming down here to Brownsville specifically to make an announcement, because they are so, this bridge, I wish I could tell you how important, this bridge and this rail bridge are so important. I mean, the people in McAllen, we met with the people in McAllen this morning. They need this. Have you ever heard McAllen need something from Brownsville? They need this. It will bring more. There's going to be so much traffic through the Rio Grande Valley. Thank goodness I'm retiring in a couple of years. I can move out to the country, the ranch country, or somebody loan me the money. But anyway, please, please, Mr. Chairman, please get that bridge built. We need it so bad. And I have some information here in a big packet I can give you later on, but you have some questions or anything. I want the Highway Commission to come down here and say, hey, these guys are ready, we're ready to build that highway. Because they're going to make an announcement that they're going to put out the RFP or whatever you call it. What do they call it? You know, RFP to do the study for construction. And we want it to come to the valley, and you have a great opportunity to bring it down 77. Be glad to answer any questions.
Well, can we brag on you for a moment? I want to thank you for your friendship, but most importantly also for your advocacy on behalf of I-69. You have refused to accept the death sentence that people have said about I-69. I've heard you on the radio, I've read your presentations, and thank you for advocating for that, and that it end in Brownsville.
Begins.
Excuse me, well said, begins in Brownsville. And thank you for all of that. Commissioner Howell?
Yes, I didn't realize it was that far back, you know, that we had that meeting. You talk
You're
about
getting old.
We're getting old,
So am
yeah. Also, I know you've done a great deal, and I remember with Steve Bowes, you and all used to, try to work for the whole Rio Grande Valley. Also, I'm glad that the Highway 511 will be a spur all the way here.
Yeah, you say it, Julius, because that'll make it happen.
I forgot to mention, let me tell you something. I sat in Washington, D.C., in Chairman Young's office, and he asked one other guy and I, we want to do some dedicated truck lanes. We want to do three in Texas. Where would you recommend one? And I recommended 511 first, and then one in McAllen, and then there was one in Houston. But he was really almost animate about 511 because of the port. So I think that all of that will be worked out. But I had a big old bunch of things to say, but I don't want to say those things. I want to say what's in my heart. And as long as I've been working on I-69, there's been some ups and downs and sideways. They said the road ferry ain't here no more. Well, but I want to tell you something. This port of Brownsville is important to the Rio Grande Valley, South Texas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you for coming down. We also have Maruca Morales signed up to speak on item 7. Ms. Morales?
Good afternoon, members and chairman of the board. My name is Maruca Morales, and I'm from Matamoros and Brownsville. I've lived here for 15 years of my life, 25 and 25 in Brownsville and Matamoros. I worked at Pan American Bank back when it was Pan American Bank, the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. And I've had bosses, great bosses like Walter Ratchin, Duffy. Mr. Collins was a great customer of mine with Buck Summer as my boss. So I've had great, great memories from Brownsville. The port was always the #1 most important thing in Brownsville. From Mexico City, what I heard of the U.S. Embassy when I worked there, to Monterrey, it was the port of choice. Seeing that the port is not moving along, I just think that I need to talk as a citizen of Brownsville and Matamoros. I was born in Brownsville Mercy Hospital back then. But I've lived here, and I was a good friend of Raul Besteiro and his family, and I experienced great things. He taught me the business, the business I'm in. I have followed the events of the development of this corridor for the last 2 years, and I know that the Port Bridge project, including the loop around Matamoros, was Mr. Besteiro's dream. It was sad to see Mr. B live the last year of his life being offended by many members of this board. As a concerned citizen, I want to state my opinion on this very important and much-needed project. First, I believe the Bridge Committee, which we will address in item number 7, should be left intact, and that Mr. Cristiano and Mr. De Los Santos should immediately begin talks with the SRE, Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores in Mexico City, the Mexican sponsor, to call for the concession for this bridge. We need to build the Raul Besteiro Memorial International Rail Track Bridge and Loop Corridor project. The citizens of Brownsville have a choice in May, and I hope the public will see this corridor project needs to be built, and that we pick the honest politicians for office in the port and the city commission to ensure that the Raul Besteiro Memorial Rail Track Bridge and Loop Corridor project is constructed. Also, I believe that the investigation with the district attorney needs to include the Brownsville Herald, if and other individuals involved who stopped this project. If the Brownsville Herald cannot publish, they are not really doing the job of newspaper. My dad was a bank president for 25 years in Matamoros and founder of the Periódico El Bravo, one of the co-founders of Periódico El Bravo, the Casino Matamorense, the Red Cross, and many other entities in Brownsville. Passed away 33 years ago, but he left a vision of also of the Port of Brownsville, where more than 1 million containers could be adding to the jobs that are here for our children, for our future in Brownsville. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
I think Mrs. Ella wants to talk again. All the things we have on our agenda, I think she could find one of them she wants to talk about.
I agree. Is she a or is she Mrs. Bella? Come on up here.
Well, let's see if I can, first of all, I'm glad to see everybody. And I'm sorry that I hadn't been, had not attended the meetings. But of course, the Port of Brownsville has always been my love affair. I'm very happy to hear that everybody is now getting excited about it. First, I would like to congratulate the board for the selection of the port director. Thank you very much. I very much wanted someone from outside to come with experience, and I think that you found a good candidate. Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you,
Port
ma'am,
Director.
very much.
And I believe that's all I have to say now because I haven't been here. But I am very excited about what I hear about the port. I've been making these predictions since, what, the 1950s. And not admitting to my age, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bella. Does anybody else wish to speak? Okay. We're going to go ahead and go on to item number 1. Approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of March 15, 2006. We have a second. Any discussion?
Think on the corrections here, Peter, I think there's a mistake here.
On item 1, Commissioner?
Yeah. For the March 3rd meeting?
We're not there yet. That's the next item. Right now, we're just doing the March 15th. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, there are none. Item 2, consider and take action to amend the minutes of the meetings of February 8th, 2006 and March 3rd, 2006. Debbie?
As we were preparing some of the documents that we approved at those meetings, on February the 8th, we discovered that, as written, the minutes reflected that the board had approved the sale of, sale of some land and that we would be retaining the fence around it. However, when I reviewed the tapes of the meeting, it indicated that we were also going to sell that fence as well.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept that change? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, there are none. The minutes will be reflected. The minutes of February 8th will be amended to that effect. March 3rd?
On March 3rd, the board took action on the PPS consult contract, and as we were trying to put that into contract, we discovered we didn't have a clear idea of what we should have in the minutes. We suggested a proposed amendment to the minutes that makes it a little bit more clear. We want to make sure that we are following the intentions of that.
Commissioner?
It was 15,000 plus up to 3,000 for expenses.
Up to?
Up to 3,000.
Not to go over.
Okay. On that note, Debbie, in your explain. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I asked the question,
Yes.
but it's for the expenses he turns in.
Right.
Not to exceed.
Right.
That was another issue. Okay, let's be clear on that subject, Debbie. In your explanatory memo, you do mention that it was monthly, and I think we should make that clear in the minutes as amended. If you look at page 3 of that day, item B, item 9B, shouldn't the minutes be changed to add per month after 15,000?
Yes, sir.
And then after 3,000, I guess we'll put plus up to $3,000 per month in itemized, I'm just asking, in itemized receipted expenses?
The motion was 15,000 plus
Per
3,000.
month, per month. That's why I want to make that clear.
Plus 3,000, up to 3,000
Per month.
for expenses per month.
Per month.
Right.
We're clear on that.
Yeah, not per year.
But was the motion so long as receipts were provided? Because that's your question in your memo.
Whatever his contract reads,
How is it right now?
he provides the receipts. Yeah.
Leave it as is.
That's what I seconded.
Yeah.
That's what I thought I seconded.
No, he doesn't, it's itemized, he doesn't present itemized.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's up,
Same thing he's doing.
so it's plus up to $3,000 in itemized expenses per month. Okay? Plus but not more than, right? Okay. All right, any other changes to either that item or any other item on the March 3rd, on the March 3rd minutes? Okay, do we have a motion to make those changes, including those mentioned today?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? There are none. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, next item is item number 3, report of our port director, Mr. List.
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, commissioners and our visitors this afternoon, staff. Yeah, we have many good items to report this afternoon. I certainly appreciate the comments, you know, about the welcome, the warm welcome of this opportunity for me, and certainly trying hard to become a Texan, and getting there. You know, the hospitality here has been wonderful for both me and my wife, and we're delighted to be here and be a part of this exciting, dynamic organization and port. And Mr. Summers, also, I'm a friend of yours from the container aspects. My first 20-some years of my career were with Sealand and some of the major container carriers, Crowley American Transport and so on. So, you know, from this person, you will have all the support possible to get that done, and I hope to be a part of that team. We're working hard at that. It's not easy. The railroads, it's difficult for them to make a commitment on double-stack containers and so on, but we're continuing to work on that, and I think you expressed some very vital ingredients in your comments, and that is that, you know, there are all kinds of border crossings, what you call dry ports, but Brownsville, the port of Brownsville is different because we have water. We have a lot of water. We have 42 feet of water, and it's not being exploited to its totality, and that's what we're doing right now with this very capable board, and working further towards that. And it's a day-to-day effort, and we're not going to let up until we see that happen. And having said that, we're doing very well as a port. I don't know if you know, we had a record year last year, over 5 million tons. So even though we don't have the containers in here just yet, we're working on, we certainly handle a lot of business, and maybe not everybody's aware of that. And in our minds, a ton is a ton. It pays dockage, wharfage, and all the other things. The stevedores have their business related to that, the pilots, the tugboats, everybody. So we're delighted with the kind of momentum we have, and the growth percentage that we see added to that. So again, a lot of good things are happening. First item I had today was the Brownsville Navigation District deeded some property in Isla Blanca Park that had been left forgotten for some time, and it has now been surveyed. At least it's an aerial survey.
I'm sorry, Mr. Lewis, you meant received deed.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're correct. And this has now been surveyed, and I think Nina Gutierrez, can you just sort of enlighten us as to the details of that?
the survey, well, I haven't checked it, but it was delivered about half an hour ago, the final survey. But this is a preliminary aerial map. And I believe you all have a letter that we sent to, Mr. Liz sent to the county. And in effect, what it is, it's this cove in here. Some of it is in the water, but this in here comprises about a little over 2.5 acres. Now, are you all familiar with this area in here? When you come in, you're coming in, when you go to the jetties on this road in here, and then you go back up there, the jetties is back over there. The Boy Scout encampment is here, present. There's an oyster restaurant about right in this area, which is outside the area. We thought that it was encompassed in that tract. One of the things that we need to do, I might tell you, is that there's all kinds of Corps of Engineers easements in here for the jetties, and I'm waiting for the mix and bound description to come in to plot one of them, because I think there's a little about 1 acre in here that might be in this area. But if we should ever decide, the board should ever decide to do something with this area, the Corps doesn't need that easement. I think we can get them to quit claiming. But I need to bring that up.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Who deeded land to the Boy Scouts?
I don't know. There's no deed on that thing, no, sir. I believe the county has allowed them to get it there. But we don't know. See, Mr. Chairman, what we want to do first was see where this tract of land was. And of course, there was an article in the paper Sunday, I believe you all got a copy of it, also about this big complex at the island, the county wants to lease in here, and it affects this area in here also. And this is a reason why Mr. Liz sent a letter to the county judge today, just to put him on notice.
So basically, just in a nutshell, as far as that issue is concerned, we have a valid deed showing the Port of Brownsville's ownership in those 5¼ acres. And that land has been surveyed, and that is the aerial description of that land. And that's land now that apparently the county is claiming as its own as well?
I don't know if the county has claimed they've been using it as such, and I don't know if they claim it, that it's theirs.
Is that land the site of a proposed island casino?
I really don't.
Commissioner, do you know about that?
I think maybe part of it could be in their plan.
Okay.
But I don't know that the casino would be.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Very well, and we see that as an opportunity for development. Some things that previously I was involved in at the Port of Tampa, a cruise ferry service is a possibility, a fast ferry service, or a small cruise. So, these are options that once this is all settled, we will address. And of course, that will require maybe a partnership with a private company to develop a terminal. Who knows? A hotel is open to many opportunities there, and of course, probably dredging. But anyway, it's located closely to where tourist activity is, and that's why we're thinking the possibility of passengers, the possibility of tourism for a location such as that. Last week, I was able to attend the Texas Port Association meeting in Austin, and it was quite an eventful meeting. And I think one of the things that came out, we mentioned it earlier in our pilot board meeting, that we were very fortunate, and it's just highlighted more when we see that from the other ports represented there. How at first they didn't know really who had gotten the dredge wheeler. When they found out it was a Port of Brownsville, some were surprised, and we feel that some of them were a little jealous in a good way, happy for us, but that was a major breakthrough. We had over 8 feet of shoaling in the entrance of our channel, and it took all of us many hours, and I really mean all of us. It was a team effort, and various trips to Washington, various trips to the Galveston Corps of Engineers district, and pleading and politicking and doing everything that had to be done to be able to get a solution to our issue. It is done now. We've been able to notify our users that they can come back in with the major ships that I think was mentioned earlier. Some of them come in with 55,000 tons of steel slab and other products. That is important for them to come in with those larger size vessels, for them to get the economies of scale where the cost of each ton of steel is reduced by $5 or more because they bring in the bigger package. So that's an attraction to doing business in the port of Brownsville, plus our BRG Railroad and all the other elements of our service. And we're right next to the border, so all of these elements are really attracting this kind of business, and consequently we've been growing and having these records of tonnage. Also was able to attend the Texas Transportation Commission meeting in Austin, and listening to some of their discussions. They're no different than ours, different situations, but they too are looking at private-public means of addressing some of their projects, and they have a Spanish company that's involved. There's always a concern, and there was a big effort to try to explain to the public how this works. I think what they're promoting there is the efficiency of the private company, and that's making the public effort be more efficient as well, and so on and so on. So it was kind of interesting to see that we're not the only ones that have those challenges, such as the bridge was mentioned earlier, and so we need to find solutions, and maybe partnerships are the solutions, and we will be looking strongly at that. One of the items that came out in that commission meeting was that they're $84 billion short of their budget to accomplish all the things they have to do in the next few years. That's a lot of money. They said they're going to have to be creative, and I guess partnerships will be a part of that. I think that's something that also tells us, and as we see the congestion on the highways and so on, that we need to promote more with TxDOT and the other entities in the state and federal government that, to also look more at the water. We know that the water ton is the cheapest ton, and so instead of, if we're not able to build all those bridges and highways and everything, the cheapest way out is to find ways where the part of that traffic that can go on the water, let's work on it, let's work together, let's get it done. We've talked a lot here about the short sea shipping. The short sea shipping is a solution to that. To that end, it would be what you call cabotage, which you have ships sailing from one U.S. port to another U.S. port. And for that, we have a tremendous disadvantage because you have what you call the harbor maintenance tax. And the way it's set up right now in our laws is that you will pay that on any cargo going from the port of Brownsville, for example, to the port of Houston. A truck or a train does not have to pay that. It's really considered a domestic run. So those are things that we need to continue to lobby for and to understand and see if we can get some exemptions in the future as we try to pull together some of our efforts, and those have to do with jump-starting containerization and roll-on, roll-off services and so on. I also attended for our port Tex 21 up in Killeen, Texas. I struggled with that. We had a presentation by Colonel from Fort Hood that evening at the reception. And afterwards I went up to meet her. In her presentation she had mentioned how important the Port of Beaumont and the Port of Corpus Christi were to them and their rapid deployment needs, all the things that happen with the military. When they move in big numbers. And I came back and I talked to our deputy, Donna Emart, and also some other folks. I mean, why are we not designated? Just asking the questions. What does it take to get designated? And yes, in the past we were considered. Why didn't it happen? So I think we want to relive that. We've already we're having now weekly conferences with our lobbyists, and we're exhausting a lot of these items, and asking them to address this, and what do we have to do to make that happen? Because they can have Port of Beaumont, Port of Corpus Christi, and I mean, we would settle for alternate Port of Brownsville or whatever it took to start getting in there. You know, even for security or for excessive storm activity is predicted for this season coming up upon us. Security, we're trying to address that in more detail. It's important. You have two choices. It's a challenge always. Either you are more proactive as a board, or eventually you're going to have to line yourselves, and maybe it'll cost you more to do it then. So our Director of Security, Mr. Gavito, has been asked to, by the way, we now call him Officer Friendly. If you didn't know that, it was his new name. Mr. Gavito...
Everybody can laugh.
Well, he has that big job of, you know, keeping us absolutely secure, zero tolerance, and at the same time moving the trucks, moving the customers in and out of those gates, and it's really not an easy job. So we asked him if he would do a little test run of asking everybody to show an ID as you know is needed. And he told me, well, you're going to have vehicles backed up all the way to 511 and this and that and the other. And I said, yeah, but we still need to do it, because eventually we're going to have to face that. So let's do more and more exercise. Well, they were backed up all the way to everywhere, Chemical Road, and some issues. And basically what we want to do is see a driver's license, some kind of U.S. government ID with a picture on it, and look at the person's face to make sure that that person was the person on the ID. Fortunately, 3 people got arrested for incorrect identification information, so the exercise proved to have some good results. We are we're getting very close to installing our machines where we can use the swipe cards, and within all of that, there's a move at the federal level for the TWIC cards, which is an effort to have a standard card for everybody, and we would certainly welcome those. But our machines, I understand, will accept the TWIC card as well if they go to a national one. And it just, there's 2 levels to that. It's basic information at first, and then the background checks on everybody, and then the felony issue comes into play, and so on and so on. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. We want to be aware of those things coming down and be prepared for them, and proactive, as I mentioned earlier. We have, through the efforts of Mr. Gutierrez, relived our leasing committee. Certainly not to create more things to do in more committees, but with a true purpose, and that is to understand better our property. We have a tremendous amount of property in this port, and it's a good thing. But to check on encroachments, to check on, you know, we want to clean things up a little bit, make it look a little more attractive where possible. You know, we're asking people to do that. So they're going to be kind of like the policemen, going out and reviewing things and coming back and reporting and trying to put things in good order, and any issues that need more security, more policing, to report those back as well. We have a new possible tenant, International Cement Advisors. They're a Spanish company, so they're coming here. They see us as a very strategic location across the border. They can bring their raw products in here to the Port of Brownsville, mix them up. What do they do? Make cement. And so if they distribute that here in the United States, they're not subject to quotas from Mexico, which we all know how challenging those are. And at the same time, they have the opportunity of shipping across the Rio Grande to Mexico. So I think their thinking is clear. It's a family-owned company. It's not a big international company. So if they have the vision all the way from Barcelona, Spain, to come over here and exploit this, they're certainly welcome. And it looks like there's a great possibility of them becoming a tenant, and I thank Herman Rico for that initiative and bringing them into the port, and B. Rosenbaum's involvement as well. With the fishing harbor, we made a presentation to the Shrimp Association some time back, and there were some discussions there about the level of maintenance and the requirements there, and Mr. Commissioner Collins was there, and we made a commitment that we would certainly look at it. They've done some surveys. We have now come to the conclusion that for the pilings, we're gonna contract that out. We don't really have the equipment and the manpower to do that, and also as far as the deck requirements, we're going to do that ourselves, and we may have to go out and take on a few more temps for that purpose only, and as soon as it's over, then we'll back off. But I did want to report that we're moving on that, and you can report that back, and Commissioner Gaiman as well, that there is some action that's going to happen very soon. We have embarked on a directory that will be very colorful. I had a sample with me from another port, but it's a very good tool that we will be able to hand out to our customers and customers to be. It will have all the phone numbers. It will have information, emails, everything. And I want to thank our PR person, Vicki Mercado, which is another hat she wears, and maybe everybody doesn't know that, but she's the unsung hero behind the scenes doing all these really new, unique things. And whereas, we really don't have that much free cash sitting around, we sat down and came up with a method that will help pay for itself, and that's by advertising. And so apparently people really responded to the advertising, and I think it really looks good. We're going to try to make it the best directory, a very colorful directory, and a tool where people can find what they need, everything related to the district and the Port of Brownsville. We are also, and I think this has been mentioned, embarking on an economic impact study, and that will also include an additional study which has to do with, what our needs are really for deepening and widening of our channel in our possible markets and so on. So we're the consulting group that's going to be doing that is going to start very soon, interviewing our own staff, interviewing tenants, and so on, to be able to come up with the information needed to provide that. That's a very important tool for us, because as we go out and our lobbyists go out and ask for funding for dredging or for so many other things, infrastructure, then it's a real professional tool to put before them. It has facts, figures, and real information, which, coming from a known, respectable company, means a lot more than us putting a little PowerPoint together and a dog and pony show. We had a trash bash last Saturday, and again, Vicki is always a leader in these things, and we really do appreciate it. And I attended, and we went down to Hidden Valley, and we had 15 people from the port.
About 14. A dirty dozen, that's all.
A dirty dozen. And somebody, I didn't get this person's name, from the Chamber of Commerce stopped by as we were working away, and they said, "Oh, this is great. Who are you from?" And I don't know, Vicki, if you'd like to expand on that, just real.
Well, it's just a way to help our community. Who keeps Brownsville clean? We do. So the thing that I like about this is that for the second time around in fall, I would really like to coordinate one here with Joe Gatsa and do one at the Port of Brownsville. And that way we'll help each other. We picked up 24 big trash bags, a couple of shopping carts, boxes, hoses, and it was a real community effort for everybody. Thank you to all those that participated. Thank you very much.
And we got our little certificates, so.
3 community hours per person.
Yeah, so is that like Monopoly, where you get out of jail free?
Well, you got 3 hot dogs.
Very, very pleased with the marketing effort and the joint efforts between the Port of Brownsville and the BRG, and Norma especially, working very closely with our Tony Rodriguez. They run down to Monterey, and they knock on doors, and they understand better what the challenges are with the railroad. The railroad needs their marketing and all of those items that we need to stay close to. So I can't thank them enough and congratulate them for carrying out the duties they're supposed to be. You can get very comfortable behind a desk and in an office, but really you've got to be out there with your customers as we want to continue growing and so on. This year we're celebrating the 70th anniversary of the Port of Brownsville, and it's a very exciting moment. I know we're all pleased with that, especially with our volumes and everything being up. And again, Vicki is taking the lead on different events. One of those events that we've come up, and I know we have several runners on the board and in the audience probably, and we're going to do a little 5K run and a 1 mile fun walk run, which Mr. Officer Friendly is going to help coordinate and pull this all together, because we have traffic assistance we'll need and so on. So this is going to be a fun thing. It'll be a fitness thing. It'll be a wellness thing, and it'll be a fun thing and for children. So start getting out your shoes and warm it up, because we're going to have a little race. We've had some discussions about dunnage. And it's been back and forth, and basically I know the stevedores don't like this subject very much, but we have been very clear that we're not an operating port. We have checked with the Port of Houston and other areas, and basically, you create a mess, you clean it up, and that's how it is. If we have to go out and clean it up, we're going to be sending a bill, and then everybody's going to be unhappy about it. So anyway, we have some challenges with the dunnage that comes off of the steel ships, especially the slab ships, and it's a lot. And we have addressed ESCO, Mr. Jarris from ESCO, and he said that he may have an interest in a lot of this lumber that's out there. It's hardwood lumber. A lot of it comes from Brazil. Could be valuable. And he said that right now it's not possible for him because a lot of it is just trash. So anyway, we're going to continue working to facilitate a solution, but it is the responsibility of the stevedores to dispose of that dunnage that comes on the ships. Our weekly conferences I mentioned before with our lobbyists, we're addressing several things. Like I mentioned, the harbor maintenance tax exemption for domestic shipping, and we're also trying to revisit the possibility of getting some federal assistance through an EDA loan. We applied for it at one time. Apparently the amount was beyond their capability. It got rejected. We're trying to understand it better so we can go in with a request that hopefully they'll respond to, and maybe, and this would be good for our Dock 16 project that's upcoming. So Hector Lopez from our staff has all the information that we need to put together for that request, and is working on that as we speak. So no stone unturned there. Also, the Word bill has apparently been pushed back with all the immigration issues that are on the Congress's people's agenda these days. So that's going to be pushed back, and maybe pushed back some more all the way up to August possibly. We have, and I mentioned this before, Terrier Transportation has started a CY, and they are, it's going to be a bonded facility, and they are going to turn us into a container port. So the first step is to have a yard that is bonded, and they're also in Houston, so they are servicing also already the lines that are up there. Hapag-Lloyd, and so we see a lot of containers already in the valley. So this is the first step. The next step is to get a ship. That'll happen when they know that there's a container yard and there is existing business. They have to make a port of call. They need a certain amount of revenue, but at least this is the first step. We're very happy about it. I understand Mr. Parker, Frank Parker, is also thinking about expanding his lease to add on acreage for that same purpose. They will be outside of the secured part of the port, and Terrier will be inside, so we have two different options. And then we have our sessions with Osprey, and Osprey is a line that came here before, and they did some short sea shipping from here to Houston. We're trying to get their attention again, and Terrier Transportation and Osprey are talking. Now Columbia Coastal, which is a barge Intercoastal Barge Service on the east coast of the United States is also working with them to maybe joining forces together and come and start a service here, hooking up with carrier transportation and the other pieces of that puzzle with all the maquilas in Monterrey and in Matamoros. Okay. And a lot of other things to share, and I think I've taken more than my share of the time, Mr. Chairman, and so I'd like to hand it back. If anybody has any questions, I guess I would be willing to address them. Any questions?
I've got a couple of questions. One, that the county might not be too happy about us owning some land on South Padre, but I understand that we've got approval to remove the railroad track by the county. Courthouse?
Yes, sir. I believe that we do have the approval to move them. Mr. Gutierrez, can you address that?
No, everything has been filed with the Surface Transportation Board. We're just waiting for the green light. They had some historical issues on what we needed to show them, that there was no historical bridges along those 2.2 miles. So we've already implemented, I mean, we turned in all the documentation, so we're just waiting for them.
You don't have any idea on the date?
We checked on it yesterday, and they needed an affidavit from me. I signed it this morning, and it's gone. So I guess within the next couple of weeks, we should start picking that up.
That'll make the county happy if we can get this track.
We have the contractor waiting. I mean, we're ready to pick it up.
The other question I had on Sunshine Cement, is there anything new on them? If they're still planning on coming into the board?
I don't have a recent update, but I understand that the conversations are ongoing and that they're still interested in trying to do that. And I'll try to get you, Hermang is not here, I don't think, this afternoon, but it is still active the way I understand. You know, those things take a long time. They have to do their marketing and studies and all the ramifications. So but I understand.
They don't come very soon. The cement companies are going to come.
And that's it. We're happy to see that there is more interest in that. As you know, our valley is growing. There's demand for the ready mix centers and all that we tend to cater to and see how we can get some of those going.
Yes, Joe, on the question about the land, prior to 1957, the port owned all that land, from the bay to the Gulf, and we just handed it over to the county, which the county is doing a great job of creating that port. But we did own it, all of it, so I don't believe they'll be too disturbed if we have that half acre, acre and a half.
Especially if we can bring a cruise line in there, it might be really happy.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. List? Thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
Gentlemen, without objection, we're going to take item 16 out of order. That's okay with B. Consider an act on the following leases. Number 1, Sanchez Oil and Gas Corporation, new lease. B.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we have Sanchez Oil and Gas, new lease. It's for 13,357.50 acres, and I provided a map for each of you of the tracts that they're proposing. Yes, sir. As a backup. This oil and gas lease is for the prospecting, drilling, and producing of oil and gas. The bonus consideration for the owner of the soil, of the topsoil, which is the Brownsville Navigation District, will receive $66,787.50, and the state will receive the same amount. The total bonus consideration is $133,575. This is based on $10 an acre for the property. It will be for a term of 5 years, and if any areas that are secured are producing, then there will be a lease on those sites as defined.
Mr. De Los Santos, as chairman of the master plan committee, are you okay with this?
I don't have any problem as long as council has reviewed it.
I have reviewed it, and actually the reason that this has taken this long is that we've spent a considerable amount of time trying to coordinate the possible activities with industrial development at the port. And I believe that there's 4 or 5 tracts of land, and there's one tract in particular that Mrs. Rosenbaum has identified would be the most prime for development. And that would be the tract that the port bought from the Espersons a number of years ago. And the lease provides that there would be no wells drilled on that tract. They could drain that tract from some other tract, like drilling a directional well somewhere else. They would have the royalty rights to that, but there would be no wells drilled on that tract. And I asked that same question: is this potentially going to interfere with industrial development? It's my understanding that staff reviewed it and said that would be the only sensitive area.
This space is ready for the board's consideration.
So moved.
We talked to you about the price, Ms. Rosenbaum. What did we look at in order to set the price?
This is the price they proposed. It is they go to the state, and I guess we have a gentleman, we have Mr. Ramsey here representing Sanchez Oil and Gas, and the state approved of this $10 per acre rate, and so that is what we.
If they strike natural gas the ball, what royalty is?
We will get half royalty, and the state would get half royalty on oil and gas.
The royalty is actually a fifth.
A fifth?
A fifth, so the state would get 10%, and BND would get 10%.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer. Can you say it again, please?
The royalty is a fifth. A fifth of anything we produce will be split 50-50 between the port and the state. So, and actually the $10 is for $10 each year. On the third year, on the fourth year, the rentals go to $100. So the fourth and fifth year, then $100. And any oil and gas we produce, from day one on, the Port of Brownsville will receive a 10%, effectively 10% off the top before any operating expenses, directly to you. So we think it's reasonable. We put some projections that we expect. At a very minimum, we think it's reasonable to find the equivalent of 10 BCF of gas. Gas today is about $7, so that would have a gross value of $70 million. 10% of that would come directly to you, $7 million.
So we want you to strike it rich.
Thank you.
And what we're undertaking is we're just not going to start drilling right away. We're going to acquire 3D seismic over the area, along with some other tracts we have leased that are adjacent to your acreage. And when we go acquire the seismic data, it's a very expensive process. We're going to have to go through a lot of rigorous hearings like this with the environmental commissions around the state. And then it's going to cost us a lot of money to go acquire the data. Once we acquire the data, our scientists will look to see if there's any prospects.
What kind of seismic, what they're doing now? A long time ago, they drilled a whole
They do it two ways. They do it still the dynamite way, or they do it using vibrator trucks.
All right.
But it's all very safe. It doesn't damage the surface. We take a lot of precautions.
Yes, I just wanted to, and I asked this question before, so it's a repetition, but to understand that these rates that we're going to be receiving, whatever levels and different activities, are standard rates for the state of Texas. Is that how it is?
Yes, that's what they write off on. Basically, with the activity that's been down here with the activity level, they approve the leases, and they see leases all over Cameron County, for example, other counties too. And they've approved the price and everything based on what they think is a market value price. If they didn't think it was enough, then they would come back and say, we're not going to approve it. Really, the state owns the minerals under all these tracts that we're talking about. And the Brownsville Navigation District, as a surface owner, represents them as an agent in the leasing.
Let me ask the harder question. Are those rates negotiable at all for us?
Yes, sir, they would have been some time ago, maybe. I'm not sure at this point in time.
The fifth royalties are fairly standard. We strike deals. Bob heads our land department. We strike deals with landowners. We just leased some tracts in the Laguna, and they're at the same rates, the same 20%.
It's more the stuff that we've leased north of here. The name being the Uturias and the Garcias own fairly sizable tracts north of you guys here, and it's in line with what we're doing with them.
Okay.
If that answers your question.
Yes.
I'm not happy.
Okay.
Yes, I think we've got very sophisticated company that we're dealing with, very educated, experienced businessmen, and I don't think we've made the best deal possible. I think we're leaving money on the table, and I think we can go back and get a better price. I know a motion's been
I'd like
made.
to add to that. We're in the process of lining up seismic crews. And as I had spoken to Mr. List, we came to you with this proposal 3 or 4 months ago. This is part of a larger shoot. So we are, for the most part, ready to line up the crews, and because of environmental issues, we only have a window to shoot the seismic data. And if we're not able to do this with you guys, then at some point we're just going to have to pull the trigger on the larger shoot itself.
I realize that
something you should consider.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. I realize that a motion and a second's been made. I personally cannot vote for it in the current state. And if the motion fails, what I would like to see us do is get a consultant, an expert in pricing, along with an oil and gas attorney who's a specialist in that area, with all due respect, who can advise us whether these are prevailing market rates or whether we're leaving anything on the table. We have a duty as fiduciaries of the port to use the land to its highest and best use for the best possible price. And I'm just not satisfied that we've done that. We may find out at the end of the exercise.
Mr. Chairman, I'm glad you're addressing that, and I apologize to them, because I had understood the first time I asked the question that there was no flexibility in the negotiation. These were standard rates, and I'm sorry that I misunderstood, because that's going to cause some interruption in their process, and I didn't intend to do that.
And I would, once again, if the motion doesn't pass, what I would like to see us do is handle this on an expedited basis, so that they can make the business decisions they need to make.
I would personally do that.
Well, we've been in this process for a while, so we're willing to, answer any questions, work with your consultant. But I do urge you to expedite this with us, because it is of a time-sensitive nature, not so much on our side, because of the way we operate, but more so because of the window we have to acquire the data.
Right.
And if we have to wait another year, it's really going to put a...
No, we'll do this as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
That's obviously if the motion doesn't pass. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? I'm opposed. Commissioner?
Aye.
Okay. The motion carries 3-2. Commissioner Damon and I. Did you vote for? I'm sorry. The motion carried 4-1. All right. Next item on the agenda is item number 4. Consider and take action to authorize the staff to prepare an RFP for design or design build for proposed Dock 16.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This is in line with our urgency to move forward with our Dock 16 project. And we just feel to stay on schedule, we need to go ahead and initiate that and to start preparing the RFP for design or design build, and we're open at this point for that.
Before we go on this, I just have a question. When we're doing the RFP, don't we have to know how we're gonna pay for this first before we actually go out for a request for proposal? I'm just wondering, how do you see this?
Can we just go ahead and go for proposal without knowing if we're gonna, use revenue bonds, we're gonna be able to pay it ourselves, we're gonna get the money from a third source?
I think it's like I stated before, when this came up and we made a presentation here a couple of meetings ago, is that everything depends on the financial picture, who is going to do the funding. If we go in and select somebody that wants to construct and pay for this, in all likelihood, they're going to want to come in and do a design build. If we go in and we say we're going to get independent funded, with a bank or whatever, then what we're looking at is an RFP for the design. And I agree with Mr. Liz that we need to move forward with this. The only thing that I see here, and I still, was seeing it before, is whether this financial institution is going to say, we've got our own engineers on board, and we don't know that. And that's the only thing.
So your recommendation would be just go move forward with this?
I say, if you want my recommendation, I say move forward with an RFP for design.
Design only.
Design only.
That's what would you amend your motion, design only?
Could I just add that this is to prepare the RFP so that we can stay on schedule, and I mean we could at least authorize to prepare the RFP, and then to actually put it out, we could come back to the board if you like.
The RFP that you're stating is fine. We can prepare an RFP, and it's going to be for design only, so it doesn't make any difference as far as the funding is concerned. If it's just and we have that already.
It's ready to go.
The intent was to do it for both, to leave it open for both opportunities.
Can you do that in one RFP, or are they two separate ones?
They would be two separate ones, I believe. I don't know if Mr. Brown, can you enlighten us a little bit on that?
I believe that it'd have to be two separate RFPs, because one is only for design, the other would be for design, construction, supervision. So I think the drafting of the engineering design side of it is an element of the other. So you could consider at least initiating the process internally for both, and then later on you can decide if you're going to go just straight design or design.
Exactly.
It's just moving the project forward at this point. And I understand that's what this board wants to do, is we want to get this thing out on the street as quickly as you can. So you're talking about staff involvement at this point, not commitments from anyone else.
What we design it was, because he said first is to design and the second one is to design, construct, well, there's two designs here.
No, it's the design element of the bridge is just that. Sorry, the dock. Okay. That was a Freudian slip.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, but the design part of the element is, regardless whether you go straight design or whether you come back later and go through a financing process of doing design build, you just couple the design build on the back of the process you would for design.
I'll come back with the second part.
Yes, sir.
And just a final comment, we're also today going to be addressing, some financials. So we're hoping that the funding will be in place by the time we launch our RFPs, because, that will attract probably more folks, more competition.
You want to authorize both, or just the design? Both?
Is that your motion? Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. List, by going out for RFPs on both, does that retain our flexibility?
I believe it does, and I don't know if anybody has any concern with that.
And I guess we have to do it separately so that we can grade each one on their own merits in separate manners, right?
Right. Let me suggest.
Okay.
It goes back to, I think, Commissioner Cristiano's question. You can prepare your RFPs, and your financial advisors here, and he may add something to this. You prepare your RFPs, either design, build. You don't go out on the street with them until you have your financing committed, or at least your mechanism committed. But it's going to take some time to draft your RFPs. So if you want to keep this thing moving on a monthly basis, I think that's the response to the question. But you're right. I don't think you. I'm over in his territory.
It's not really financial. I'm Larry Jordan with Estrada and Host, and we have a presentation later. My personal opinion, it's not really financial advice, but my personal opinion is it's a little bit easier for you to make a decision up front that you're going to design it and then have a construction manager or take bids, or you're going to do design build. I'm afraid if you do two processes, well, then you got a winner over here and a winner over there, and now you're deciding between apples and oranges. So I guess, and I don't think that it will so much affect the financing. I think the financing is relatively independent. So I guess if I were you, I think I might say, well, maybe I need to make a good decision today or sometime in the future about design build versus our other alternatives.
Okay, appreciate that. Yes. So if it could be either, if it could be one or the other, and let us decide which are
approve both.
Okay.
May I ask a question on that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Lester, you said you're just going to prepare the RFP, but you're not going to issue the RFP.
That's what I'm thinking.
And the motion from Commissioner Gaiman is to authorize staff to prepare an RFP for both, and then let the staff, Mr. List and the staff, decide which one to issue. Okay. And who seconded that motion? Is that your second, Commissioner? Okay. Any discussion? When do you think you'll have this for us? What's our schedule? I know that today we needed to decide on financing, but do you remember what the schedule was, Nino, as far as when to put the RFP out?
30 days from last month.
No, that was today. That's for financing. With the RFP,
I think it's also the RFP.
No, I don't have it on here. You know, what do we need, 4 weeks?
4 weeks. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item number 5, presentation by financial institutions regarding funding options for proposed Dock 16 project. We have first Bank of America.
Mr. Chairman, well, Commissioners, the reason for inviting them in is to enlighten us all more on the mechanics of how we can do our funding and the options, so that we will have some alternatives to choose from, if that's possible, and basically be able to get the best funding possible for the project. And by the way, there are some new creative ways that we see from the past that may be possible to do.
Thank you for your time. Very much appreciated. Let me just introduce myself and my team first. My name is Tim Artis. I'm in the government banking group at Bank of America in Houston. I cover the South Texas market in Houston, primarily for government entities being special issuing authorities such as the port, schools, public schools, that is, cities, counties, I also have with me Trip Davenport, who is with Bank of America Securities in our public finance area. He actually assists in bond underwriting. And then I have Larry Zamponi. Larry? He is our local president of Bank of America in the Valley, which we have 8 branches now, I believe, Larry. Anyway, we met with Bernard, I guess, 2-3 weeks ago, and we talked about 2 subjects that I thought he was interested in following up. Number one was the public-private partnerships, which have been mentioned quite a bit here in the earlier part of the meeting. So first, Tripp wanted to address that because he's got a lot of experience in that. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about private placement of debt as an alternative to the bond market. So Tripp.
Thank y'all very much. Just full disclosure, my dad lives in McAllen, so I don't know if that's it sounds like that may not be a good thing, but that's how I'm going to introduce myself. If you'll go to page 1, public-private partnerships are essentially going to be the wave of the future, we believe, at least the bank does. The Federal Department of Transportation has a $15 billion private activity bond program whereby port authorities, other entities, governmental bodies can issue tax-exempt debt, and it makes most sense to do this with a private partner. I won't get into too much detail about that because primarily it was recently passed and they just recently did the regulations on it, so no one's even afforded themselves with this opportunity, though it's something that I would like to, in the future, work with you all and your very capable financial advisors on and looking at some different ways that we can assist you all through that process. The other thing is the state of Texas has also opened up, as you well know, to public-private partnerships, whether it be the Texas Trans Corridor. They also have what's called pass-through rail financing and pass-through toll financing, where you can build roads and the state will reimburse you, or you can build rail and the state would reimburse you to a certain amount. Any key to a public-private partnership is going to be leadership through you all or through your private partner, working together, formulating a plan, and coming up with what makes sense both for the community that it impacts. Also, quite frankly, there has to be profit associated with it. The private developer is not doing this philanthropically. They're there to make some money, but the whole goal of this is to take advantage of the private sector's efficiencies in building and sometimes in management versus the efficiencies of tax-exempt financing and some of the things that you also bring to the table. With the leadership, you can come up with a dynamic plan. It gets very detailed and it's very cumbersome, yet that's just part of the process. And then, as I mentioned, profit. There has to be some kind of profit motive for a private entity to risk its capital and to risk its sweat equity and make the project successful for everyone that they partner up with. And at the end of the day, you have to find the right partner. Quite frankly, the best price is not necessarily the best partner. Sometimes you're going to pay a little more to work with someone that maybe has more experience, more capabilities. And also, that goes both ways. It's not always the best or the most experienced that's the best fit for you. It could be somewhere in between. And so you all obviously have to keep an open mind and look to see what is the best value for you as you go through that process. And from our side, we would just like the opportunity to work through the financing with you and partner. That's what we would bring to the table, is to work with your financial advisors and come up with a plan of finance and help underwrite. If you're talking about Bank of America Securities or with the bank, with the K as I call it, the big bank that everyone's familiar with, the ATMs and the tellers, their ability to provide liquidity and so forth. On page 2, this is just kind of a traditional way that you may finance something, whether it be through a private placement or a bond offering. The port would issue debt, you'd get bond proceeds, governmental bodies or customers would provide you with revenue to pay the debt service, and then you all would hire a contractor to build out the project. If you go to page 3, again, this becomes somewhat detailed, and I don't want to get into too much detail. It would be for a subsequent meeting because the real purpose is to discuss about your financing of, I believe it's Pier 16. But this is a diagram of how a legal structure would be set up and a financing structure would be set up for a public-private partnership. Essentially, you would have the port enter into what I detailed earlier, which would be a comprehensive developers agreement, and the developer and investor would use a nonprofit, so they could take for themselves the advantage of taking tax-exempt debt, or you could also act as a conduit. and build out whatever infrastructure improvement needs you have that you've agreed to in your comprehensive developers agreement. And with that, I'll pass it over to Tim, but I'm more than happy to engage any questions or comments you may have.
Thank you.
Now for the real issue, where's the money? If you turn to page 4, I'm just going to do a brief commercial here, if you don't mind, just to kind of give you a little background about Bank of America's government banking group. We basically try to be a one-stop shop to governmental entities. We do anything from invest monies to provide bond underwriting through TRIPS Group to doing private placements through the bank. In Texas, we actually have 5 teams. I actually represent Houston and South Texas. We have people in the other major cities. In Texas, we have about 300 clients, and we have about $3.5 billion of credit extended to those 300 clients. Nationally, we've got about 18 billion committed to government entities. I say that not because bigger is better, but because we have a lot of experience in doing tax-exempt financing, and I think it's critical to deal with somebody that is used to doing tax-exempt financing. If you turn the page, just briefly, we're here primarily to talk about credit. And this is a listing of the various credit facilities or type of facilities that we provide. And I won't go through each one of them because later on I just want to highlight some of our key deals that we've done that might be relevant to everyone here at the port. But the 2 things I will mention is tax-exempt leasing. We have a very active tax-exempt leasing group. To the extent you have something like a crane or something else as you go forward with your project in your Doc 16, we can look at leasing as an alternative to the bond market. It's simple, it's inexpensive, and we've actually done quite a few leases this year. Just recently, I don't know if anyone's from Austin, but we just got the award on a $36 million lease for light rail in Capital Metro in Austin, which in that particular case, they did not want to issue bonds. And the bank actually stepped up and did a lease for the rail cars. So just an example of what we can do. And we do leases as low as $500,000 up to millions. So again, we can provide an additional alternative besides the bond market. The second thing is a private placement. Private placement is basically a bond, but instead of going to the public market, you are actually going to the bank. So what we do is we actually buy the bond from you, and it's Bank of America basically owns the paper versus you selling it out in the public market. If you turn the page, why is that a good alternative? Number one, you don't have all the disclosure issues you have in the public market. The bank underwrites it just for itself, so your information is limited just to the bank. Number two, you have less cost up front. In most cases, we basically have a $2,500 to $5,000 legal review fee, and then you have to pay, and then we have, and we also have MAC fees and attorney general fees, which again are not that terribly expensive. So again, I won't go into details, and Larry is familiar with our product, and he's worked with us on other deals. So we work very closely with the FA, the financial advisor, and it really has to make sense. Sometimes it does not make sense, but again, we want to present it as an alternative. One of the things my page here addresses is bank qualified debt. To the extent you issue less than $10 million a year, that's a calendar year, we get special tax treatment for that, and we can actually give you a better rate, hopefully, than you could get in the public market. However, in this particular case, I'm not sure it qualifies for bank qualification, given some issues with the Port Authority and how they conduct business with private companies versus public. But I wanted to throw that out just because we do a lot of that, and to the extent the source of what we're financing actually has public use, then it would actually potentially be a bank qualified deal. But in particular Dock 16 case, I'm not sure it does, and Larry can shed more light on that. But again, we just wanted to highlight. Just quickly, an example of what we've done. The city of Humboldt, which I don't know if y'all are familiar with Houston and Humboldt, but it is, if you go 59 north, it's probably a half an hour outside of Houston. It's very close to the Intercontinental Airport, very close to Kingwood, the master plan community. Humboldt had a tremendous amount of retail growth, and they also were very close to the airport and very close to Kingwood, which has a lot of new housing subdivisions going in. They actually were faced with building some new sewer systems and also some new roads, basically doubling their debt. Their financial advisor came to us and wanted an alternative to the bond market. We actually structured a deal where we actually divided the loan into 3 parts, which was a little painful to begin with, but it saved them a significant amount of money because by dividing it up, we actually got 20 million bank qualified, and 2 million was actually taxable, but all net, they saved a lot of money by doing it privately. Now again, I want to make sure you know that this is not the answer to everything, but it's an alternative to consider. Just if you turn the page just real briefly, here's a list of some of the transactions we've been involved in, just so you get a little flavor for what we've done. I know we've talked about bridges here earlier, but we did finance the Cameron County Bridge under a bank qualified tax exempt deal, and it's worked out wonderfully for us. So we have, experience there. We talked about the Capital Metropolitan Transportation lease that we did. We also have some experience with the Port of Houston. The Port of Houston has got a lot of big projects going on now, and they are actually issuing commercial paper for those projects, and then once they get built, or every so often, they'll actually issue long-term bonds. We actually provide liquidity backup in case that commercial paper comes back. The bank actually then takes it, which never happens, but we provide the backup which is necessary there. So we've got a pretty big amount extended to the port. I won't go through the rest, but we do anything from schools to cities, and we do it well. We execute very well, and we would love to work with your FA to the extent this makes sense for the port. And we thank you for your time.
And thank you, and thank you for, again, enlightening us with the different alternatives. Sounds like you have enough variety of product that you can custom make something for us that will work best for us is what, without trying to understand the details of your business. And the leasing, is that a new way of financing, or has it been around for a while?
No, it's been around a long time. It's just, for some people it makes more sense to do a lease. Typically a lease is going to be shorter tenure than a bond.
Okay.
Most of our leases are anywhere from probably 10 to 15 years.
Okay.
To the extent you want to go out further, the bond market probably makes more sense, because in the bond market you have all the upfront costs, but to the extent you can amortize those over a longer period of time, it's a better effective rate. But to the extent you're doing a shorter term asset and you want to match the cash flow to the asset, the lease makes sense for some people. Again, it's an answer for some people. Some people would rather, a lot of schools, they do a lot of equipment that probably wears out in 10 years, I think. Larry, you probably know this better than me. The school bus lasts, 10 years maybe?
It's a long time for a school bus.
Yeah, a long time. Well, most of them are done with long-term bonds. So
just
really
thinking of other things that we can embark on here, a crane, all the things that, so that's why.
Yeah, we do anything from cranes to fire. We do a lot of fire trucks for cities. And, surprisingly, we're talking $500,000 for a fire truck. Pretty expensive, but we also do HVAC systems where a systems provider would actually come in and guarantee you a certain amount of savings, and we basically do the lease based on the guaranteed savings that you would get, and we do a lease for that. So again, we've got a tremendous amount of experience, and like you said, we can tailor-make your deal. So basically, we can make it fit our box pretty easily, whereas in the public market, sometimes it has to fit the box.
Very good.
So, but Trip does that in case you need it.
Make it fit, okay.
That's right. But
You
thank
know
you.
which Cameron County bridge y'all did, the Los Tomates? Or
Yeah,
Los
that,
Angeles?
the Los Tomates, yeah. And, that was in, Larry, that was in 98?
It was a while back.
Yeah, I think it was in,
Whenever Los Tomates went from.
Yeah, it was in 98.
Just for purpose of clarity, they actually acted as a lender, and we were the financial advisor on that project.
Right.
So anything that is being seen by you today, don't act like it's a strange thing. We work a lot with them, we work with a lot of other banks in a variety of different products, and our role is just to make sure that whatever you do, whatever you end up doing, whether it's a lease or bond financing, that the cost of funds is the most efficient cost of funds you can
Right.
get in the market.
That's what makes a difference. If it doesn't make the numbers, we don't do it. The bond market does it, but if it makes sense to do it alternatively.
And our board won't let us in.
So,
Thank you very much, sir.
thank you.
Next is Texas State Bank.
Hello. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Commissioner. My name is Armando Resu. I'm one of the both senior vice presidents and local commercial lenders here in Brownsville. We just met with Mr. Liss yesterday, and he asked us to come and as your community bank, and we don't have as sophisticated as financing options as maybe a Bank of America or Wells Fargo, but we definitely can offer you an A type of loan to help you with your financing on your dock.
Texas State Bank, we're headquartered in McAllen. We're a $6.5 billion bank. There's 75 branches throughout the state. Like Armando said, we don't have a fancy presentation, but we're a community bank. We can do your typical conventional financing. We offer fixed rates, floating rates. We can amortize the loan, 20-year, 30-year, zero prepayment clauses. Easy bank, community bank. And our lending limit is $60 million per relationship.
Yeah, I mean, like Juan saying, we can offer you a traditional interim construction loan, which I think Mr. Liss was telling us the project was approximately $12 million, and you're looking at financing 10. We give you a 30-month term with interest payable monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, whatever fits the cash flow stream of the port. And then at that time, we also would be entertained at doing a permanent loan for the port, also with a 20-year amortization, a 30-year amortization, again, matching the cash flow stream of the port. What we're here to offer is just a conventional, traditional meat potato type of loan, and maybe that will fit your needs. Willing to entertain any questions also.
Okay, no, sounds good, and you're local, and I know the relationship would be very, very friendly, and again, the options I think are good options to consider. I don't know if Debbie has any questions.
I have a comment, just for your info.
Yes.
As well as we do work with B of A, we also work with Texas State Bank in terms of the fact that they are a community bank, as they described it to you. We represent a county just north of here that has endured some pretty difficult financial times. And if not for having the relationship that we have, and for them having the knowledge that they have on this county, we could make things happen. And as your financial advisor, based on the structure, based on the nature of the credit, our objective is, again, to bring to you a bank that best fits from our opinion, your needs. And the fact that they're local is important, as you mentioned, and something that will be considered.
The funding, the advancement would be local. Everything's local. The farthest we go for an answer is McAllen, but everything will be done out of our office.
And due to the fact that the tax-exempt loan, I know we can be very competitive on the interest rate and offer you one set of fixed or a variable rate. And we're very familiar with the port being local, and we have a lot of customers here at the port, and it's an opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. The third presenter is Wells Fargo.
They were not sure they were going to make it.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions regarding or for any of the presenters on this item? Anybody? If not, we'll move to item number 6, receive report and comments from district's financial consultant regarding the financing of the proposed Dock 6 stage. Jordan?
Thank you. I'm Larry Jordan with Estrada and Hossa. Of course, Noe and Hossa is here also. He's been working with the board of the district for a long time and has a lot of background. What we're trying to do tonight is to follow up on some of the conversations that we've had in the past about financing options. I know you heard from the attorneys at a recent meeting. We've had some follow-up with them. I think also to give you some idea of the capacity from a revenue bond standpoint, and then just to kind of try without being editorial, just try to put the presentations tonight in some perspective, I guess. First of all, the presentation that we got from the lawyers recently and the phone call that we had a few months ago was we really surveyed the landscape and talked about all kinds of, you could vote bonds, you could do revenue bonds, you could have some kind of a lease arrangement, you could do a public-private partnership, you could have different concession agreements and the like. And I think in subsequent conversations with some of the staff members and with the attorneys and ourselves, we sort of said, well, all that's still on the table, but for right now, I think if we're going to assume that you're not going to vote it, and we still believe that some form of a bond, whether it's placed with somebody like you've seen today or whether it's underwritten in the market, which also could be done with people you've seen today, that is really going to be your lowest cost of capital. You're going to have difficulty with a lease that's subject to appropriation or with some kind of a facility that's based on someone else's credit. You're going to have trouble beating that rate. And a conventional loan is typically all about assets. And here you don't want to pledge a mortgage on the thing. You don't want somebody to lift up your dock. They're not going to do that anyway. And you... I guess also you're a little bit encumbered because you have pledged the revenues of your port system to your outstanding bonds. So, for instance, if you say, well, we're going to go do our own deal off here on the dock, and some of your revenue gets diverted to the dock, and it affects your ability to issue future revenue bonds, or it hurts your outstanding revenue bonds, then I think we've all made a mistake. So I think we have viewed this as on the baseline, that the baseline scenario is we're not going to vote it. We're going to do we're proposing we would do a port revenue bond. Now, if there's a private partner materializes, then it's different. And that guy may want to do something else, and you might want to structure a different arrangement. And some of the things that the bank discussed today make a lot of sense. But I think without a partner, those things really don't come into play. You're not really going to form nonprofit corporations. You're not going to enter into CDA agreements. You're not going to create a public improvement district. You're going to do a bond. And that's, like I say, everything we've discussed is on the table, and if a partner comes, we may do something different. But for right now, the baseline scenario, I think, would be a revenue bond. There are some issues with the revenue bond that we've discussed before. One is the impairment charge on the bridge. We need to meet what's called an additional bonds test. We need to say that the revenues that we have available to pay the bonds are enough to pay both the old bonds that you have and the new bonds that you would be about to have. And there was a question early on, well, we can easily meet a test before we take the impairment charge, but after we take the impairment charge, have we damaged our net revenues? And it's the collective opinion of the staff, the independent auditor, the bond counsel, ourselves, that no, you don't have to count the charge. The charge is not an operation, it's not an operating expense of the port. It shouldn't count against net revenues. And really, the charge does not affect your cash position. It does not affect your revenues. It does not affect your ability to pay debt service in the future. So that's good news. The other thing that we've
opinion been given in writing?
No, but I'm sure we can get that. It's not a contested item at this point. The other thing we've talked about, and I think this also makes some of the bank's opportunities attractive. When we sell bonds, we would sell with the underlying rating of the port, which is a good rating. It's in the A category, although We could also purchase municipal bond insurance. You've done that before. It's like mortgage insurance, where the insurance company agrees to make the payments if you don't, and we don't ever think that happens, and it rarely does, but it gets you the benefit of a AAA rating and a lower interest cost. Now, there's been issues with ports and with coastal communities relative to bond insurance, because the insurers see Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Rita, and all of a sudden they're thinking, I'm just not sure that I want to be in that market. And so we've had some difficulty with insurance in the past because of the business you're in and because of where you're located. And we've really, in the past, turned to banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo, and we have done private placements just like they discussed tonight. And from our standpoint, that can be attractive to you if the bank says, as they said tonight, you really don't have to do a lot of documents. You really don't have to get a bond rating. We know who you are. You really don't need bond insurance. It's not going to affect your pricing, and we can be competitive with the external market. So, you know, I'm encouraged that there's banks that are in this business, that are interested in talking to you, and that are open to the idea of a placement. And I think that's a door that you definitely want to leave open. Sometimes, the way I would describe it, when you're in the market, and when the gentleman says I'm an underwriter, he really means he's going to buy the bonds from you, and he's going to resell them to investors. And when he does that, you know, anybody is able to buy it. And so it's got to look very conventional, and it's got to look very, it's got to be something that you can just pass around the room and everybody knows what it is. When the other gentleman says, well, no, I will accept it on a placement basis, that means it's really more like a loan. It's just between the two of you, and whatever you agree to can work. And so there's really some attractiveness to that feature. Now, the downside is sometimes there are restrictions on your ability to call the bonds. Sometimes, you know, the rate may be more attractive or may not be as attractive. Sometimes there's anxiety about, well, I hope it's not too long of a loan. So it's all things that we would want to look hard at and evaluate and negotiate. But I do want to leave you with the idea that that the placement is an option that we've done in the past. It may be the best option here, and I would encourage all these folks that have talked to you to keep coming back and keep talking to you, because you know, we're interested in that business. With that, let me step through a real brief presentation that we handed you on revenue bonds. The first page really just shows that interest rates are near 40-year lows. Certainly not the absolute lowest of the lows, but certainly very close. And that certainly works in your favor. We also have shown you the estimation of the project cost, and quite honestly, we were told, well, that we've penciled it out at 11 million, but construction costs are escalating, so you better say 12. So that's why it looks like there's contingencies on top of contingencies. But I mean, when we actually do the financing, of course, we would borrow only what we needed, and maybe not all that we needed. Maybe you'd contribute some cash.
That's correct.
I may want to add too, if you don't mind, Larry.
Yeah.
You took action earlier about preparing an RFP for
Yes, sir.
design build or just design. And this is a concept of proposed budget if you were to go on a design basis. You know, you see contingency of 100,000, contingency of 950, thereabout. When you go on a design build basis, most of the time you get a GMP contract, guaranteed maximum purchase contract price. And on that, basically you agree to give it to the best provider for constructing the facility. So that's what's important to, as Larry said earlier, that as you go about releasing the RFP, that you have pretty fundamental commitment as to how you like to award for the construction of the facility.
Okay.
This is conventional. This is what we do most of all over Texas, conventional construction. Somebody designs it, you let out for bids, the lowest bid gets it, and you go finance it. I mean, you go construct it. The design build, you know, you basically have somebody design it for you and then build it, and all that comes with the one price.
Thank you.
On page 4, we show you the outstanding debt that you have now. And of course, you do have some debt that's supported by taxes. That's not what we're discussing tonight. These are revenue bonds. And you have 2 liens of revenue bonds, first lien and junior lien. The first lien gets paid first. And you can see I'm on page 4. It says pre-2006 in blue up to the right. Column D is the first lien bonds. Column E is the second lien bonds. Column F is the total. And you can see that's about $2.1 million of debt service that you pay today. Now, the additional bonds test that we've talked about is an average of 2 years. And for the years ended 2004, and 2005, the average available revenues was $3.6 million. And that will comfortably cover the average annual debt service here, which works out to about $1.8 million. So we're good. Now, we do have to mention that we're going to be anxious to see the 06 results. And the 06 results could mean that you can afford more or you can afford less. And I think our early indications are that 06 was a pretty decent year. I'm not worried about it, but I want to mention it that these are all based on the 2004, 2005. And the other thing to mention is that the impairment charge is something that, as you know better than I do, it's been discussed over the last year or 2 or 3 years. It's sort of crept its way into the financial statements with, increasing disclosure and an increasing amount of impairment. Our best advice to you is this time out, we have done, I think, a pretty good job. Well, let me compliment you that we had to have conversations with the bond rating agencies about the bridge and about the impairment. And the first statement they made to us is, we really appreciate the diligence that the board has shown and the transparency of the whole process, where we can go on the website and see all the reports. And if nothing else, that's given the market a lot of comfort, just that, if they've got questions, you've got answers, and there's nobody dodging anything here, and it's all out front. So I compliment you on that. I will say that at that time, we were anticipating that there could be an impairment charge, and in fact there was. So we really need to go back to them and explain that there was a charge, and we're going to get the question, are you done with impairment charges? And the only right answer is the truthful answer. So I think my best advice to you is that you're supposed to get into the bond market, either with the private placement or with the sale, after you have your 2006 audit, immediately after your 2006 audit. And that way you're able to tell the bondholders, and I'm suggesting that you really resolve the impairment. If there's going to be any impairment, I would do it in 2006. And if there's not going to be any more, I would say it.
We're currently set for trial in October of this year.
Okay. So to the extent that you can be definitive about impairment in 2006, I think that's helpful to you. And then also, of course, we want to wait for the audit to see how the 2006 year was, so that we know that we have the coverage to issue the bonds. If we issue the bonds, as revenue bonds, on page 5.
If I may add, Larry.
Yeah.
Current bonds that are outstanding, we got 2 types of them. One are property tax supported debt. You set a tax rate out there. We saw GO bonds, mostly for the bridge project. But we also have port revenue bonds. So what is being presented to you tonight is nothing different than what we've done in the past. In fact, I think we bought property, the Garcia property, we bought it with port revenue bonds. And we met this test of coverages. The Union Leaf debt that is currently outstanding is basically, it's been used or sold for the railroad improvements, or I think we did the rail yard with some of that and some of the locomotives. So everything that we're doing tonight is giving you a picture of what we already have, and then what if we do this financing for this dock, how is it going to impact your revenue operations? Most of your business people or businessmen, you're going to find that column F, the $3.6 million that you see there, that's sort of available funds that you can dedicate to pay debt. When your staff prepares rates on leases, charges to users of the port, is based on your ability not only to pay for operations, but to pay for your debt. Well, the $3.6 million pays the $2.1 million that you see on that column F, row number 6. The excess of it, if you were a businessman, that will be your profit, basically. In this case, we normally use those funds to do other capital projects or to accumulate and retain earnings or fund balance. So our objective in that, when the board directed us to come up with a plan for this dock is to, one, find the ability to finance, on how to finance this project. And the financial ability is there despite the impairment charges. And what's more concerned to us now is making sure that the 06 audit kind of matches or is better than the 05 audit in terms of what that real number is. I think the 04 number, the audit of 04 showed $4.1 million of excess revenues over expenditures, and I think the 05 audit showed more like a $3.1 million. So the average of those 2 years comes to $3.6 million. If 05, 06 audit shows somewhat as the same amount of the 05, let's say it's $3.1 million, then your average is $3.1 million, meaning that the coverage basically how much with your available revenues, how much can you cover your debt payments. And the credit rating agencies and insurance companies have very specific standards of coverage on this type of bonds. They want to see 1.5 on average %. You legally have told the investor that if you borrow my bonds, if you purchase my bonds, if you lend me the money, I'm going to have 1.25 or 1.35.
1.4.
1.4%. So that's unusual. Okay, that's because you're a port. So again, what we're doing with you tonight is sort of walking you through what we already have done in the past and how you can bring this project and adapt it to your existing debt structure without impairing your financial.
No, and Larry both. The bond money that has been spent on the bridge.
Yes.
Is that a mixture of GO and revenue bonds?
It was strictly GO bonds up until, I think there was one small loan for about $3 million, $4 million done in the late 90s. As a revenue bond.
And the $3 million in the late 90s was revenue?
Yes.
1.9
1.9
of that
million.
was bridge.
And then how much was GO?
At least 14 million, 14 or 15 million. Because we had authority for 21.
We sold 13.
And there are 6 available. So it's authority for 21.
We sold 13 million of the GO bond.
I'm not going to hold you to the exact numbers, but
We can give you that report to the specific.
I really would like to know that.
Yes, I can do that.
How much of this is separate and apart from this discussion, but since I have you here, I'm going to ask
Most
you,
definitely.
how much of the $21 million in bond money has actually been spent? And what type of bonds were spent?
Yes, sir.
I've had nuances of answers, but I just want to get that clear.
Most definitely. We'll give you a report on that.
But most of it, you do know for sure that most of that money was GO bond.
Exactly.
Thank you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No.
That's a great question.
Excuse me?
Some of the money that's come on the bridge was out of revenue, not out of.
Right.
Probably about half of it.
When we sell revenue bonds, they're system-wide revenue bonds. They're not a specific project. We don't sell dock revenue bonds. The port has an overall system, and it's based on that basis that we sold port revenue bonds. Is that fair?
Yes.
You get that?
Yeah, but I'm saying, we didn't, all the money that was spent on the bridge was not bonded.
It was not
But they
bonded.
might have
No,
spent
that's
cash
correct.
as well as bond.
Oh, there was some cash out there. Yes, sir. And that's where
Probably,
you may have
I'm
some.
guessing about 50% was cash out of our pocket, but I don't know.
Not
Debbie,
quite,
but
no, not quite. We spent about $14 million out of bonds, so about $7 million out of it.
About 7 out of our pocket.
That would be,
Okay.
But you'll get that report
Oh,
to
most
all the
definitely.
commissioners?
Yes.
Thank you.
Page 5, we show what a new bond issue might look like. On column C, cell 4 there, it says CM plus 40 BPs. That just means current market plus 0.41%. So in other words, we're estimating pretty conservatively, and that also tells you that in the current market, instead of 5.25, it might be 4 3/4. So, for instance, if somebody says to you, well, this loan would be at, prime plus 3%, well, that's way the heck over what you could do 4 3/4. 4 3/4 is going to be a tough rate for anybody to beat, and that's why I started the conversation the way I did. Anyway, it's about $1 million a year for 20 years worth of payments, and when you add that to at least in the early years, approximately $2 million, you'd end up with approximately $3 million of revenue bond debt service. Now, the coverage test is based on average revenues and average payments. But of course, we care about two things. We care about average meeting the test, and then we care about, well, what about actually next year, can we make our payments? And so that's what we show you in G and H, and we show you that here, at this level, we could pay the first lien bonds 1.4 times, and the second lien, in addition, almost 1.2 times. But again, to the extent that 06 is not as good as 04, our average slips, our affordability, the coverages start to slide a little bit. And this illustrates a $13 million issue, which generates $12 million for proceeds. So if you decide, well, it's not going to be a $12 million project, it's 10 or 11, or it's going to be 12, but we're going to pay $2 million cash, then all these numbers get better. And I think in rough terms, we've talked about a $10 million issue might be, $850,000 worth of payments. So all these numbers would be a little bit more to your favor.
And of course, we can continue working on the government aspect of it, getting it funded.
Absolutely.
And those numbers would make these numbers obviously a lot better.
Absolutely. We'd like nothing better than to get a big old grant to pay for most of this.
Phase 2.
And behind that, if you had a private partner that was going to put some money in, that'd be great too.
And as Commissioner Cristiano and I were talking, we could do this. We could choose to do this for phase 1 of our Dock 16 project while we pursue federal funding for phase 2 of the project, right?
That has been discussed, yes.
Yes, and I guess just to recap, and again, put the discussions in perspective, I think you did have meetings tonight, and you've had meetings on other days with other folks that are in our market that we work with every day. I'm not here to compete with them. If you pick one of those guys, and you can pick anyone you want or somebody else, we'll work with them. We'll get you the best transaction that we can. And certainly, like I say, it's viable. With these coverage levels and the strength of the port, you'd be able to go out into the general market and do an underwritten deal. You'd also be able to get a private placement with one of these people. So you're in good shape, whichever way you want to go. And I'm just encouraged that there's folks that are here anxious to work with you. So certainly, we're glad to answer any questions. If things come up in the future, Melanie and I both are in Brownsville all the time, and we're glad to meet with you or with potential partners or with grant agencies. We're glad to run different scenarios for you. Just if there's any way we can help, we certainly want to be there for you.
Thank you, Larry.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions for either one of them? Item number 7, consider and act on transferring authority, functions, and responsibilities of Bridge Committee to the entire board with board officers to serve in both capacities as Bridge Committee officers, pending further appointment by the board chairman and board approval.
Let me say what I understand how you can appoint whoever you want on committees, but also you can take off whoever you want, and you can change it. Is that correct? That's the chairman.
That particular committee, that's correct.
All committee appointments appointed by the chairman.
Well, unless the board formed a committee and provided differently. That's correct.
But in the past, that's actually.
That's correct.
In the past, I've been chairman, Julius has been chairman, and Roy's been chairman. That's the options of the chairman.
My intention at this time is not to necessarily replace anyone on the committee. I think we all owe the current committee a tremendous debt of gratitude. I know they've traveled to Mexico on several occasions. I think one time close to the Christmas holidays. I don't want to over-dramatize it, but there was some fear of personal safety. I know one commissioner was threatened, legally and physically. let's not gainsay the fact that this is not, has not been the easiest job to do. And I think, you know, with all the talk recently about paying people and paying representatives, this board and these commissioners have worked. I know, Julius, you've worked here for a long, long time, and I say work because you have worked without compensation. And I think somebody told me one time that the water code does allow us to be paid, but we've never, to my knowledge, we've never tried to enforce that. So there's a lot of time that's invested, and I think everyone owes each commissioner, each person on the committee a debt of gratitude. The committee is in a state of transition at this point. Right now, the committee is Commissioner Cristiano, who I appointed as chairman, Mr. Renfro, who I appointed to the committee, and Mr. Gutierrez, who I appointed to the committee as well. And Mr. Gutierrez, unfortunately, is leaving us at some point soon, and we're going to need to try to find a way to replace him. And as I mentioned, Commissioner Gaiman, you are correct. I created this committee. I named its members, and I named the chairman, and my intention is not to fire anyone. My intention here is to make sure that the entire board, for a period of time, acts as the committee, with the current board officers serving as the committee officers. And no one should read anything into that other than, in my opinion, that's what's best for us right now.
My question is, though, is that this something that you do, or is that something that we need to make a motion on?
Well,
The board needs to approve?
Well, I guess I could do it myself without board action. However, I'd like to do this together. But it is certainly an option that I have as chairman. But
I want to ask Dan, can we do it either way, or does it have to be? Sure.
Well, this is an advisory committee. If you have the entire board and council to be a portion of the committee, obviously it becomes something more than an advisory committee. And at that point, it would probably be appropriate to have board action to do that. It tends to change the nature of the committee if you have all of the board members sitting on the committee. And that may very well be an appropriate thing.
I can't. I'm having trouble here.
Close the doors.
I've got some ideas, gentlemen, that I think you'll like. That are ideas and out-of-the-box thoughts that I don't think anyone here has mentioned about this. I'd like to discuss it with you on executive session because we do have Data and Bond Engineering here present. They spoke during our public comment. The individual that spoke is well, I've heard her described as an employee of Dan Baum Engineering. She certainly has a relationship with Louis Jones. Dan Baum Engineering also has another employee present at this meeting, so I would like to discuss some ideas that I have about this in executive session as far as where I'd like to see us go as a committee.
Well, we can just table this.
Sure. Sure.
Make a motion.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed?
Dan, can we take that into executive session?
Well, you can certainly give legal advice or to the extent it pertains to litigation. Yes.
Any further discussion? All those in favor to table after executive session say aye. All those opposed? There are none. Item number 8, consider and act on issuing within 3 days public statements summarizing current status of Port Bridge project, including the updates since the 2005 binational meeting. I think we should do this, gentlemen, no matter what we do, no matter what course we take. I think the public needs to know what the current status of our project is. We've had Mr. Summers here from the Rio Grande Valley Partnership discuss how important this project is. I think the public needs to know what the current status is. So I would make this motion that we issue within 3 days a public statement, and I'll assign Mr. Renfro and the committee to draft that for the board chairman's approval and Port Treasurer's approval. Do we have a second to that motion?
Well, I'll give you the update.
Okay.
Unfortunately, since we got together and we formed the committee till, I believe it was
August of '04.
August of '04, but until, let's see, I believe it was December. No, I take it back. I'm sorry. August of '05, middle of August '05, we, as a committee, could not use any information whatsoever from any document that pertained to the bridge project for any reason, or to give to any, whether it's a government entity or a private individual. We could not use.
Our hands were tied.
Our hands were tied. Legally, we could not even open the door to look at them. We could not show them to them. It was through order of the court, if I say that correct.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay. Since that point, Ernesto Silva, which was hired by us to go out and find the status of the bridge, he didn't get them till, I guess, soon after that time. He went over them, and on January 10th, sent us a report that he got the information and what he was going to do. You know, he was going to forward the information to the state of Tamaulipas to look at the documentation so they could give us the status of where they stood on the bridge project. Since that time, they have not, since after January 10th when they got the information to now, they have not let us know what the status is. Obviously, they're telling us that obviously there's a lot of, it's a voluminous information, a lot of information, documents they have to go through, and they have to do their due diligence to authenticate, with, especially with all the turmoil that we have on our bridge project, that everything is, everything has to be double checked, and everything has to be analyzed. To now, they have still not responded to Ernesto Silva and asking the question. As far as I know, some people are misguided by thinking that Ernesto Silva has been paid. He hasn't been paid anything and has not billed the court anything because he has not done what he was contracted out to do. So as far as the status of what's happening, that is in a nutshell what's been going on. And let me tell you, there's been a lot of meetings of why can't we get these documents out? Why couldn't we get moving on it? There's been a lot of information.
And just so the record is clear on that, the documents were sought to be sealed by Danamon Engineering. It took a lot of attorney's fees and a lot of time, a lot of court effort, a lot of staff time. I know Ms. Emard was involved, Mr. Renfro was involved, I was involved. Spent most of my summer on that issue, this past summer. Commissioner Cristiano was asking for these documents. Mr. Gutierrez was calling, asking about these documents, and he's absolutely correct. It has been a real tug of war to get documents that we paid $15.5 million for in our hands to use to salvage something out of this bridge.
To further, just to let everybody know what's going on, I did get Ernesto Silva to send me something, a statement of where we are as far as the status of what we're waiting for, and he put on here some phases of 3 phases. I'll be more than happy to. I want to, before I hand them over to Emma, I kind of want just to have Dan Renfro look at them and make sure that everything is okay. I'm pretty sure everything's fine. Nobody has this except me, so I just want to let him look at them before we furnish them to you. So I think pretty much you'll be getting them today. I do want them, and after that, I mean, you can get them too. Anyways, the January 10th letter, which will be there. There's 3 letters. There's an August 11th, a January 10th, and an April 5th. And they're open, I think, after Mr. Renfro can look at them and see that it's okay to give them. I think they'll be pretty much open records, and anybody can get them that wants them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions?
Oh, and on the agenda item to go ahead and put, I was trying to get Ernesto Silva to come in and give his own side of everything. Obviously, I cannot speak for him. He had to fly out to D.C. today.
Can he help us get a public statement
I told him to just come at the next meeting. That way the public, the viewers can see him on, hear him live as well. So he'll be here at the next meeting.
Very good.
Plus we got this, which I think this will serve as a statement.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Item number 9, receive report. By the way, I have already taken a break. We've been at this for 2 hours. Why don't we take about a 5-minute break and we'll come back to the session. But, comment that I made in connection with item 16, and that is that when I was talking about the need for an expert with respect to the Sanchez oil site, I was talking about somebody who could tell us up-to-the-minute market prices, because those people know up-to-the-minute market prices for oil and gas. We have a tremendous Department of Industrial Development, Mr. List. Our director, B. Rosenbaum, does a tremendous job.
Yes.
But she's being asked, and has been wearing different hats,
Yes.
whether it's for a restaurant or
Doing the best you can.
or Donnie Chair Company or oil and gas or all the other different industries that we give her. But oil and gas is a specific and specialized industry. There's a lot of wealthy lawyers that are just oil and gas lawyers. And so I meant no professional or personal disrespect to UB or to our staff in calling for
Thank you for
Just
that.
wanted to make that clear. And just to please forgive me in case any other impression was given. Item number 9, receive report on potential development of 250 acres of BND property across from Villa del Sol subdivision, FM 511. No action. That's what it says.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, what has started this thing again was that I was called by Gonzalez Engineers that they had a client that wants to develop some property adjacent to ours. If I may, I think I would approach it over here to get a little closer. Their property is 111 acres in here. This is B&D property. A number of years back in the mid-90s, there was some studies made how to develop this property in here. As a result, this map in here was generated with all kinds of lots in here. I might add that it says Carter and Burgess there. I was working for Carter and Burgess at one time, but this, when I started digging into this, B showed it to me. It's the first time I had seen this, so I'm really not aware of it. In conjunction with that this is 511, this is the other zone. At the time that this was going on, and in your packet, there was a PowerPoint presentation that I included in there, and my understanding was, in reading this PowerPoint, is that this property was going to be sold by B&D, and there was appraisals made on it, and this property would be sold to BEDC, and they would administer this project. This thing was shelved, from what I understand, because the residents at Minnesota didn't want any additional truck traffic in this area in here. Now I don't think there's a choice on it, because this 111 acres are going to be developed for industrial tracks. This area here already, you see signs in here, 5-acre tracks soon to be available. Now as we look at our property in here, and there's about 250, maybe a little less than that in this area here. The only access we have to it is, this is Palo Alto Yard, is by means of Yard Road in here. It is very, very narrow. You really cannot access this property if you do any development in here. So the reason why I had this, where they called me to this meeting, was they're going to provide, of course, a sanitary sewer here and water to develop this. And right at the bottom, I might add that this is the proposed 511 in here. Now, 511 was going to be no access to this area in here, and primarily because this is the way the textile fields rolls nowadays. I briefed you sometime back on what we're trying to do with this area in here. But as a result of this development in here that they were gonna get landlocked, they TxDOT went in and put a frontage road in here all the way to the railroad overpass, proposed railroad overpass, and then back again. What this in effect does, it opens up our property in here to highway frontage. However, the ideal front access to highway should be right through this area in here. As I spoke to these folks, you know, I told them about this and what they wanted, and the question that they had of us, and I told them, of course, that this would be up to the board, would be they're going to put a lift station in here. Going to run about $100,000 more or less. They're going to run a force main back to another lift station that's over here near the soil someplace. But they wanted to know if we would participate in the cost of this lift station. And they've talked to Gonzalez Engineer, and they say, well, the additional cost would be about $25,000. $125,000 would have a lift station in here that would serve both the 111 acres a year and our 250. They were agreeable to negotiate for a road in here to connect our property. Now, in my report that I've given in there, in addition to participate in this, the cost of this lift station, we would probably have to run a line in here to have it ready whenever we decide to tap into it. Now, the other thing that might come up also is this force main. They're going to have to engineer this. If, for example, if they say just for this property here, it might be 8-inch force main, and we come in, we want to tap in here, the deciders might say, well, we need a 10-inch force main, so we might be having to pay the difference between the 8 and the 10. At any rate, the way we left it was that I would make this presentation to you all, and at the same time, Gonzalez is getting with the owners to see what kind of percent involvement they expect from us for this lift station. And so right now, if you're right, Mr. Chairman, there's no action on this thing because we don't have all the facts together on this. But if we ever expect to develop all this area here, this is a natural right in here. When I see this and I visualize this thing, we're not talking about just regular $1,800 to $2,000, per acre in here. We're looking at something bigger than that. And that, in a nutshell, is my report.
If I remember correctly, you know, first of all, this land was probably they wanted to build a jail here, if I remember right. And that went before the village was sold and did. And they got upset, they didn't want a jail here. So later on, park, national park. But the reason it was, I believe the port turned it down, they just wanted to give maybe $4,000 or $5,000 an acre. They wanted to pay hardly anything, Roy, if you remember.
I think it was very minimal.
Minimal. So
the property we would not get any of that money back.
no, we won't get any money. In other words, they would have gone to buy it from us and we're going to put that money back to develop, and we wasn't getting anything back. So that's why it was refused. It's not the idea of having a park there, but the port would not benefit from anything.
But there was some opposition.
And there was some opposition also.
That's the only thing that I heard. I didn't know about the rest of it.
But
Well,
if the port
I think that would be a good avenue to try to get that roadway in there, because
Absolutely.
and then having that lift station there would be a benefit to our property also.
Well, we'll come back later
Yes.
on and with a firm proposal from that then, see what it is.
Let us know how much money. Just concerned about the money.
Yeah.
We need all the money we can get for Dock 16.
Thank you, Commissioner. Absolutely, and just, Nino's been working on that, and certainly commending, because we have insisted on finding avenues to open that up, because that otherwise we're landlocked, we can't develop that. And now that there's peace in the village, then we can move forward with this. And as we see that there are a lot of potential tenants and existing tenants that might want to be out of the security area, this is an avenue certainly opens that up, and we can move, looks like fairly quickly on this. You know, it's going to be a little bit of cash to start it up, but I mean, otherwise to buy the roadway is going to be probably more, whatever, I don't know.
Well, right now, TxDOT has made an offer for this right-of-way here, and they're rejecting that offer. So apparently they have a different idea of the value of this property here. But I think if we work with them on this lift station, we can work something out in this corner here. Regardless of what we do, this road here has to come in. One thing I didn't mention, there is a drainage easement in here that I need to do some research on. There's addition there, but it doesn't lead to any place. It's just there. I think that we could probably do away with that and have our own drainage system.
Very good, Nino. Any questions for Nino on this item? If not, we'll move to item number 10. Consider an act on whether to accept or reject the proposed offer by the Brownsville and Rio Grande International Railroad regarding payment for rail cars, and or consider an act on whether to issue counteroffer. Mr. List?
Yes, we've had several meetings and discussion on this, and perhaps to just sum it up very in a nutshell, is that basically we have approached, well, there's two things here, is to renew the agreement that is expired, and number two, you know, within all that, make the adjustments where we can benefit with funds to help build Dock 16. This infrastructure benefits the BRG, benefits the BND, the port. And so, you know, the discussion has been around, you know, to not move forward with this as partners. We will both suffer from the lack of the infrastructure that we need. So the way it sort of ended up is that we put a fixed amount in the agreement for each car that would be $20 per car, whereas before it was a little bit of a scaled type of arrangement, but now since they have pretty much assured volumes, the scaled approach is a little bit more difficult for the accounting, and so I think we all agree on that. And then you know, it would be a 17-year agreement, and within all of that, there's also some language there that refers to, and to sum it up, it'd be 90% of the remaining revenues would come to the port at the end of the year. And I don't know if I said that exactly correctly.
When does your fiscal year end?
December 31st.
December 31st.
So that's it. And then the other part that we were proposing is an increment every 5 years of $2 per car above the $20. And that is based on the premises that we assume that we're all going to be growing. We assume that we're all going to be doing a little better, and so that is the proposal.
Let me ask you this, Norma. If we accept the proposal given by board action of the BRG, and that's at the meeting of February 27th, when do you propose to pay that 90%? You know, the 90%? Like on January 1 of 07, or when would that be?
Yeah,
more or less. Well, let me give. Does any? I have a couple of comments to make. Does anybody have any questions before I make a comment and perhaps offer a compromise? The current track rental agreement was signed in 1983, and the rates that the BRG has been paying us are essentially 1983 rates. And if anybody could buy something today for what it cost in 1983, you're a lot better businessman than I am. Having said that, right now the BRG is paying essentially $17.38 a rail car if you take into account the debt service that they're paying on behalf of the BND. And even the BRG has recognized that given that the rate is over 20 years old, it needs to be increased. And the BRG has offered a new agreement of $20 per car plus the other formula. 90% of the excess of cash and receivables after allowance for collection risk over half of the operating expenses for the previous fiscal year. We have responded to that, we meaning the BND, or let me rephrase, Mr. List has made a counteroffer. And tonight we can decide whether to extend that counteroffer or whether we can accept the offer that the BRG has made. And I'd like to propose a compromise. And I don't know whether this is acceptable to BRG. I think it would be. I would propose that we haven't negotiated contracts in a long time with the BRG. And we need to get back in that tenor. And I think one of the things that you've tried to do, Mr. List, you came on board in September, and within 3 months you realized that the agreement had expired and needed to be updated. And of course we have a capital campaign to build Dock 16, and we need to make sure that we get all the pennies we possibly can.
That's the motivation.
Here's what I would propose. Rather than what the BRG is proposing and what we're proposing, a 17-year agreement, let's have a 1-year agreement. At $20 a car, plus the 90% of the excess of cash and receivables after allowance for collection risk over half of the operating expenses for the previous fiscal year. That would allow both parties to gauge the effect of that increased rate and to gauge the business sense of whether that can continue at that same pace or at a higher rate in the future. We have to understand that what's good for the BND is good for the BRG and vice versa.
Yes,
Commissioner De Los Santos serves on the BRG board as chairman. I know Ms. Emart is also a board member. We all have a vested interest in making sure that BRG is profitable. Mr. Ostis, one of our leading lessees, is also on the board. So I would propose that, gentlemen and ladies, 1 year perhaps from today, as long as that money is paid, whatever that difference is paid in January of 07.
I say we stick a little bit more to what, I mean, just, you know, we're talking right now, but I would stick a little bit more to what we have here. And I think 1 year makes it too, you know, it doesn't really give you time to see the effects of it because it's really a long-term effect.
Yeah.
I would say let's keep it like it is. For 5 years, let's keep it at $20. And after the 5th year, then we'll sit down at the table again and we'll renegotiate it. Hopefully you guys will double in size and we can charge you $30 a car.
And that was my suggestion. We could if we could go 1 year, we could go 5 years, but at the end of either of those periods, then each of us get our arm wrestling outfits out and renegotiate this as at the best possible rate for us and the best possible rate for the BRG. 1 year or 5 years.
Well, I have to agree with Luigi. 1 year is not long enough. You go 5 years, at the end of 5 years, we come to the table here and we arm wrestle like you said. In 5 years, it might be $25 a car instead of 22.
The problem with that, Commissioner, is remember we're going to be opening Dock 16 in September of 2008. And I want to make sure that we share in the revenue benefits that the BRG will benefit from the increased traffic from Dock 16. So I think we should go 1 year and then renegotiate.
Let me stick another thing, Peter. If we go 5 years, like Luigi suggested, at the end of each year, you're going to get 90% from one side, so you're getting the money out.
If we're profitable, you get 90% at the end of
The problem with that, and Mr. List knows my feelings about this, and the good people at BRG know, is that it does introduce an element of adversity into the relationship. Because the closest parallel we have to this 90% is what the PUD and the city go through each year. When the city says that it's owed a lot more than what the PUD says it should pay. And I'd like to see how that goes, because I don't want there to be any adversity between the BND and the BRG. And that's why I'm unwilling to commit both parties to that type of situation that we know breeds adversity. I mean, there are some hard feelings between the city of Brownsville and the city of Brownsville's PUD over how much Brownsville's owed. And I don't want to see that happen to us. And I think, if anything, this 1 year period is also a test period to see how that 90% works. How do you feel about that, Commissioner?
I think the 5 years would suit our board better. That way we'd get a rough estimate of how if we're gonna have to increase from our customers at the end of the 5 years to make up some differences, because we're already $5 a week in the hole right now, trying to make up. And I see the 5 year plan a lot better to our board, to benefit, because the 90% is still gonna be there at the end anyway. But after 5 years, we're gonna get a good picture if that stream of cars is gonna keep coming through, and how much track repair we're gonna have, and maintenance. I think that would give us a good overall picture.
Commissioner, what do you think about that? 5 years or 1 year?
Nino, how long is it gonna take to build Dock 16? About 2 years?
What, 36 months?
September of '08?
How long?
30 to 36 months from the time that we hired
He just added 6 months to what our proposal.
3 years.
3 years?
2.5 to 3 years.
I think we ought to do it for, split it, do it 2.5 to 3 years. Because once we get the dock built, then we're gonna really know how much we're gonna need, like payments.
How do y'all feel about that, Bobby?
Well, Mr. Chairman, we're just talking about opening it up for discussions again for money, right? We're not going to open the whole agreement up again? What would be your plan there?
Right. Look, as a plaintiff's lawyer, it's all about how much you're going to settle for, and then we'll work out the details later.
Yeah.
Just give me a price.
Well, I think that's part of the thing that we'd want to know, that we've got an agreement for 17 years, and that we're just be discussing the revenue part.
Right. I think that's a very good point. Yeah, absolutely. The terms won't change. Maybe the price will.
Well, I really feel like that it's the longer that we have an opportunity to feel what's the effects of your increase or our increased payment to you, would be better. I would like to see 5 years, but
you could live with 3.
Board members here.
If we did 3 years, that would be you'd have about a year of Dock 16.
But that really has to go back to the board. I mean, we can't make a decision.
It has to
go, yeah, it has to go back to the board.
4 years.
I would say 4. I mean, I would say 4 years, because really by the time you get this Dock 16, in place, say 2009, say summer 2009, and by the time we actually start running traffic through it and you actually start getting revenues, we start receiving revenues another year after that. So, I mean, I would say 4 years would be.
In 4 years, you can see what kind of revenue Dock 16 is actually going to bring you. And by the 4th year, by the end of the 4th year, you know what kind of revenue is building Dock 16.
It is, but the reason I say 5 years, because the first 5 years of the contract will be for $20, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and after that, we can discuss more. That's the reason
But I think the issue that the chairman is bringing up is to see how the 90% works.
That's the
not so
only
much
thing.
the $20.
How do we look at the revenues of BND and the BRG? So we might need to adjust it to be an even approach.
For example,
yes, sir.
For example, in Mr. Renfro's analysis of the proposals, he states correctly that Mr. Barrera has an opinion that a proper reserve is for 6 months. And there may be other opinions that are different than that.
That actually comes from the bond resolution that created the BNRG. Not the 6 months. The 6 month is an attempt to avoid this argument that we might have in the future. The 6 month reserve is not in the bond resolution. The bond resolution just says a reasonable reserve.
Okay.
And the parties could agree on what a reasonable reserve is. Whether it's 6 months or 3 months or 9 months, whatever it is.
I just, the only problem that I have with going longer than 5 years is I just don't want to build in a source of tension between the two bodies. And I just would like to have an escape hatch for that, by way of a shorter term. Because I'm telling you, everybody that knows the relationship between the pub and the city, it's contentious, and it's over this issue.
Could we put some kind of exit clause, like you're saying, that in the event that after the first year it doesn't work for any reason?
That's why we should just do a 1-year agreement.
Well, but we're banking on it's going to work.
Well, but also, Donna, I think Mr. List's calculation of it at $20 a car and being willing to accept that is based on this other percentage as well. If we don't do the percentage, then we might have to ask for a higher price per car. So,
Why don't we do this? I'll just make a motion, because I think, we're arguing, we're very close. I'll just make a motion for 5 years at this current contract. At any given time, we have the authority to go up to you and ask to renegotiate a contract.
Do we?
Well, I mean, we can tell them, if it's not working for them, they can come to us and tell us, this is not working for us, and we can go up to them and tell them it's not working. We're binded by the contract, but if we're a relationship, we should be able to talk it out. 5 years is very close to what we're talking about already. Whether we say 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, I think all